What's going on, guys? This is Taylor, and I know that generally when I talk about things, I kind of just say it with sarcastic tones or joking demeanor because I really don't like to take things that seriously usually. But today I want to talk about a story that is pretty serious and it means a lot to me. And it's weird to say that because I hadn't thought about this instance in years, like literally years. I hadn't thought about this, and just randomly walking home from class today, I just my mind just focused on this one memory, and I just really just myopically just kept thinking and mulling it over in my head and tossing it around. And I thought, you know what, this is one of those stories that would probably be beneficial for people to hear. And so I apologize that this isn't one of those amusing, funny videos, but I think it's important nonetheless. So this story pretty much begins in 6th grade, when I was in 6th grade. And you have to know, from my 6th grade, I was the oldest in the school. Now, most schools, the way they work is you go from kindergarten to 5th grade, and then middle school goes from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. My school went from kindergarten to 6th grade, and then middle school was 7th and 8th grade. And so instead of being, most people as 6th graders were like the smallest fish in the biggest pond, I, on the other hand, was still experiencing the world of being a big fish in a small pond in 6th grade. And consequently, I kind of we all really started to understand what was cool a little bit earlier. And so this was kind of our awkward age where we really started to figure out what pop culture was and just how we were supposed to act to be perceived as cool. Everybody listening to NSYNC and whatnot and all the cool things at the time. And there was this one kid in my class, we'll call him Dylan. And this kid, Dylan, was kind of goofy, he was really into fantasy novels, he was really into a lot of weird stuff that wasn't, completely seen as normal by the rest of us. And this kid was ruthlessly and just unambiguously mocked every day, all the time, incessantly, and without mercy. He was constantly made fun of, verbally abused and berated for no reason, other than the fact that clearly, it's not a mystery. Like, we don't have to pretend like we don't know why kids make fun of each other. We know exactly why kids at this age make fun of each other. It's because they're insecure in themselves and they want to project their insecurity onto others to draw attention away from the fact that they are the ones who are really feeling weird about themselves. And usually the people who are made fun of are the ones who are actually conforming to who they want to be, as opposed to, fitting into a little niche where you're told. But anyway, all this to say that this kid, Dylan, was incessantly made fun of. He had a really, really shitty time at this school. He joined our school kind of late. Most of us knew each other from kindergarten up. I think he came in like 4th grade, so he's already kind of like an awkward duck coming on in. And everybody just leapt at that opportunity to just make fun of him. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but I never did make fun of him. I never got into like fights with him or anything. I never made fun of him. I never picked on him or anything like that. Now, I wasn't his best friend, and I wasn't really overtly nice to him, but I just went out of my way to make sure that when I did have contact with him, even if it was only, once a week or so, doing a project or asking for a colored pencil or something, I would be nice to him, and I went out of my way to do that because I had a lot of pity in my heart for this kid. I felt so bad for him, and it got to the point that this kid was getting made fun of all day, all the time. Like, I was surprised that this kid hadn't left school yet. It was unbelievable. Just like I did not realize this is the best way to say it. I did not realize the full potential of how cruel 11 and 12-year-old kids can be until I saw the treatment of this kid by my fellow classmates and my peers, and it was absolutely disgusting. And it got to the point that this kid was so lonely and didn't have anyone to talk to or hang out with that his dad actually called my mom and wanted to see if I would spend the day with he and his son and go to a baseball game, go to a Cardinals game. And the Cardinals are like the biggest sport around here. Everybody loves going to Cardinals games. And as the kicker, it was during a school day. And so I was going to get to skip school to go to a sports game with this kind of awkward, weird kid, Dylan, and his dad. And at first, when my mom told me this, I was like, oh shit, I can't believe this is going to happen. I knew that being nice to that kid was going to backfire. I knew I was going to have to do something about it eventually. Now he's going to want to come over or something and be best friends, and then he's going to talk to me at school, and then I'm going to get made fun of because they're going to go say, oh, look, Taylor's hanging out with that awkward kid, Dylan. Now he's awkward too. Let's all ruthlessly pick on him too. And so I was there having a little, 12-year-old kid crisis, like, shit. I don't want to get made fun of too. How can I avoid this situation? And I told my mom that I wasn't sure I wanted to go, and unexpectedly, I didn't expect her to say, oh, you can make your own decision. I thought that she was going to say, no, you have to go. But she said, no, Taylor, you can make your own decision and decide whether or not you want to go to the game with Dylan. And so I thought about it that night, mulled it over in my head, and later in the night, my dad approached me about it, and he asked me about the situation. I told him about it, and he told me that he didn't want to tell me what to do, but that he thinks it'd be a really nice gesture for me to go to the game with that kid. And looking back, I realize now exactly why my dad said that, and I am only very fortunate that I took both he and my mother's advice. And so I decided to go to this game with this kid and his dad, and go to the baseball game and skip half a day of school for it. And what I didn't realize until right before the event is that since we were both at school and we're going to get called out early to go to this game, that they were going to announce over the PA system, Taylor and Brian go to the office for early dismissal for the Cardinals game or whatever. And I was freaking out again. I was like, oh shit, now they're going to know that we just both didn't get called out at the same time. Now they're going to know that I'm actually hanging out with this kid outside of school. Oh no, it's collapsing again. So I started freaking out in class, and I'm like, I'm dreading that moment when the PA is going to bing on and I'm going to get called out, and I just imagine this scenario where I'm just getting laughed at by everyone. Completely unrealistic, I know, but that's what I'm imagining because I was a kid. The PA system does announce it, and they call us both to the office, and that was the first instance of my life that I can remember back to where I properly utilized the art of not giving a fuck. I walked out of there like I didn't give a shit about anything. Nobody, and that was the trick to it. When you're that young, that's all it takes. If you act like you don't care about something, people aren't going to make fun of you for it because they're thinking, oh, he doesn't care anyway. Why make fun? And that was really all it took. And that's kind of anticlimactic, but that's really all it took. And I ended up going to this game with this kid and had a great time with he and his dad, and really just kind of got to know him better. And I enjoyed my time with him. And the reason that this story is so important to me is that about 2 years after I went to this game, Dylan died of a brain tumor. A few months, I think, after we left for 6th grade, he was diagnosed with it. And because he went to a different school than I did, he went to a different 7th grade, and I went to a different 7th grade, as I was saying. I didn't really know about any of this stuff, and so I wasn't really caught up with it. And so I didn't know about his, medical problems and what was going on until he died. And so out of nowhere, when I was in 8th grade, this kid, my mom mentioned, she's like, oh, do you remember Dylan from 6th grade? It's so sad. He just died from a brain tumor. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. That's so surreal. This kid that I went to school with died of a brain tumor at such a young age. And it was kind of then that I realized that, like, that day that I spent with him, just hanging out watching a baseball game, like that, to me, that was just a day where I went to a baseball game with a kid that was kind of goofy that I used to get out of school. But for him, it wasn't like that. It was just a fun day where he got to finally have a friend. For him, it was a day where he was accepted for who he was, and he didn't have to worry about getting critiqued from the back of the classroom, or laughed at, or tripped, or pushed on the playground, or made fun of because he had acne and was kind of, goofy looking and liked fantasy novels so much. He didn't have to worry about any of that day. He just got to go to a baseball game with me and just hang out and just have a good time. And it sounds really stupid, but that's a beautiful image to me, just to think that this kid's whole life was so shitty, and he got it robbed away from him at such a young age. He never got to experience even the fun parts of childhood that myself and my friends got to. And it's just cool to think that for that one, just that glimpse of a day, that I got to share with him and really just enjoy just a bond with him and just have a good time with him. And for me, I wish I could have, I wish I could go back. I wish I could go back to 6th grade and spend more time with this kid and be nice to him and make his life a little bit better, knowing that this horrible ailment would strike him and he would die. But I can't do that. I can't go back and change anything that I did. So I'm going to have to live the rest of my life knowing that the only real nice thing that I did for this kid was spend one afternoon with him almost out of pity. And that's pretty much all that I did for this kid. And the sad thing is that's more than he got from most other kids. And that's why it's so sad, is you don't know who these kids are going to be who are going to end up dying early, who are going to end up having horrible afflictions. You don't know that. And so I would just encourage you guys, I realize maybe I just rambled off a little bit in this video, but just take the initiative every once in a while. If you see someone who's struggling and you see that they don't have any friends, just go up and talk to them. Just don't be afraid of what assholes think about it. And the reason I say this is because I realize that the vast majority of my audience are still in middle school and high school, and you guys still have an opportunity to go out there and help people who have problems like this. And just, you don't have to be a superhero best friend of all time who takes them out every weekend and buys them ice cream. Just be nice to them. Just, show attention and don't be don't even smirk when other people make fun of them. Don't even approve of when people are being even passive dicks to them. Just draw a line in the sand and say no, fuck you. Don't make fun of them. I'm gonna be on their side if you take up arms against them again. And so just go out of your way to be nice to these people. And I know this sounds like a stupid friggin' PBS special, and I hate that. I hate it. But I mean, there's no other way for me to put it. And so. I'm sorry that this video wasn't my normal thing where I kind of make jokes and am sarcastic about a lot of stuff, but this is something that, it should be more important to me, and it's kind of a lesson that I learned early in life that I'm only now truly appreciating, that, even a small act for someone can really just make all the difference. So that's all I got to say. Hope you guys enjoyed. Love you. Alright, you bastards, it's time for a story from my life, and I'm going to talk about all the pets that I've had throughout my, relatively short life, 21 years, and all of them, or at least most, I don't want to give away any spoilers, have died, obviously. So, I've gone through a lot of pets, a lot more than people usually do. A good buddy of mine has had the same dog for like 14 years, another buddy of mine had the same one for 13 years until it died. I was going to say passed away, and then I was like, Jesus, how weird is it to use a euphemism for death like passed away when you're talking about a fucking animal? Like, who cares? Like, I mean, I know you care a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not like this monumentous occasion when a dog dies. Like, I guess it could be, but in most circumstances, you don't want to say, like, Pipsy, Pipsy was a good dog, but she's in a better place. Like, you just don't say shit like that with animals. So, anyway, let's get started. I'm going to go in chronological order. Number one, it was a dog that my grandparents bought, and it was a little tiny, I don't even remember what kind, I guess a little mutt, a little dark mutt, and they got it when I was 2 or 3, I think maybe even 2 years old, and we were sitting in the back of the truck after getting it, because my grandparents own a farm, and so we were in the back of the truck. And my grandpa decided to let me name it, and I'm sure he thought I was going to name it Spot or like, some weird thing that a child would name it, and he was right. I decided out of nowhere to name my first dog Felicia, which, is there any more of a name that brings up the sight of a black receptionist in like a Tyler Perry movie than friggin' Felicia? Like, what the hell was I thinking? I don't know, I was 2, don't ask questions. They were just like, all right, Felicia it is. And so Felicia hung out for a little while, I think for like 6 months, and then Felicia actually became vastly interested in activity in the middle of a road in a small country area. And so Felicia was promptly crushed and killed by some sort of trucker. Not his fault at all, just this dumbass dog that was not trained and ran out there, and Felicia got her ass handed to her. Or no, wait, it was his ass. I named this boy dog Felicia. How much sense does that make? No idea. I'm sure I didn't understand the subtleties of gender at the time. So that was number one. That was Felicia. Felicia passed away so long ago. I guess like 93, 92. So next, it was a fish, and the name of this fish was Fish Named Gil. Now, I was still young when I got it, and me and my brother came to the consensus that we didn't want to name it Gil, we wanted to name it Fish Named Gil. And so every time you referred to it, you had to say, look at Fish Named Gil over there. And it really didn't make sense, not a very good way to structure your language, but Fish Named Gil was a piranha. And one day, one fateful evening, when we were in the process of moving, my dad left Fish Named Gil's tank out in the garage, and lo and behold, the next day we walked out and Fish Named Gil had died. He had actually OD'd on freezing weather in the middle of a goddamn garage in like January. So poor old Fish Named Gil. I think we buried him in a box outside, probably only to be later dug up by a cat and gnawed on as some sort of decent feast, whatever. But that was Fish Named Gil. That was number 2. Going on to number 3 was Beans, and Beans was a big, fluffy Maltese kind of dog, but I'm not sure what he was bred with, because it wasn't a purebred Maltese. It was quite a bit larger than a Maltese. If you guys have seen my videos where I show you Tobo, my current dog, it's a small white dog like that, but it's about, 50% bigger than Tobo, pretty much the same shape. And Beans' big problem was that most dogs will eat anything, like anything at all, but this dog would eat anything at all, plus everything that even most dogs won't eat. Like, he was eating huge plastic toys, he was eating my lightsabers, and not just gnawing on them and ruining it, and leaving those little, pock marks from his teeth. He was legitimately eating our lightsabers and eating my plastic toys. I can still remember to this day that at my grandparents' house, we brought him down once, and I had this awesome, badass shark toy that was so cool and rubbery, and one fateful night I left it out, and the next morning I came out, and all I could find was just half of the tail of this rubber shark. And just understand, this was no trifling rubber shark. This was like a foot-long, big, thick, giant phallic shark, and this dog just gnawed it to pieces, killed it. Eventually, I'm pretty sure Beans just became so old and full of plastic and lighters and rocks and acorns and just whatever the hell that dog would eat. Like, you could literally put an Xbox controller down, and if you turned your head, he would start having a goddamn feast. Like, you couldn't let this dog be alone for a second. So Beans passed away. He was pretty much the shoe nice of my dog collection, except even, more ridiculous, although we didn't give him alcohol, not to my knowledge. So Beans passed away, overdosing on ridiculousness. And that brings us to number 4. And number 4, we're another fish. It seemed like we kind of traded off with fish and dogs because my parents would be like, oh shit, it's almost like our sons are just like murdering these dogs in really mysterious ways because they keep dying so fast. And so we bought 2 more fish, and I'm still relatively young at this point, probably 5, 6, or no, I guess I was 7, and my younger brother was 5. And so we got 2 fish, 1 for each of us, and he named his fish Dog, and I named my fish Soldier because my fish kind of had and I named mine first. I can still remember sitting there, and he's probably too young to remember, but mine was kind of speckled, almost camo colored, and so I was like, I'm going to name my fish Soldier because it looks like a soldier, and I was 7 years old feeling proud, like, yeah, that was clever, that's good, Taylor. And then Nathan, my younger brother, just goes, my fish is brown. I'm going to name it Dog because dogs are brown. And so then he named it Dog, which was really dumb, and it pissed me off because, like, no, Nathan, you can't name it Dog, because in my head I had this ridiculous, idea that these are going to be 2 badass fish friends. I want to be like, name it Ranger or something like that. And he's like, nope, it's Dog. And I'm like, well, shit. All my fantasies just fell into the toilet and got flushed. And so they stayed around for a little while until I was fishing one day with my grandparents down at their farm, and I caught a bluegill. And this bluegill was too big to, throw back, but too little to just eat and have a feast. So I was like, I want to keep this fish, and we can take it and put it in the tank when we get home to live with Dog and Soldier. And even a small bluegill is immensely larger than these tiny little fish. It was almost like throwing a giant, a tiger into a tabby cat exhibit. And so we threw him in there at one night right before we went to bed, and we were like, oh, cool, they're all going to get along so well. And so then we went to bed, and we woke up the next morning, and it turns out that the bluegill did not take kindly to Soldier or Dog, because when we went over to the tank, he had pretty much eaten them alive, and they were still swimming around. Like, I can still picture Dog with one of his eyes ripped out and the other one dangling from just a thread from his eye socket, and he's just barely swimming still. I don't know how he was just still going, and so many of his his scales were torn, just shorn apart, just flesh showing. Like, this is freaking eating them alive, like cannibalized them in the middle of the goddamn night. And so then my dad was like, well, shit, because this was like the first night that we had it. So then we flushed Dog, Soldier, and this bluegill down the toilet, and the bluegill fought back a little bit, but the toilet won. You can't fight the toilet. That's modern technology. You're just a goddamn fish. Get used to it. So as I was getting Black Ops 2, I effectively performed one of the most childish and manipulative ploys of my entire life. And although it's something that may be shameful, I'm taking a weird kind of pride in it. I think I really showed off my acting chops, I think, in this situation. So, story begins is I did not get Black Ops 2 early. I tried to, but it was too expensive. It wasn't worth it for me. And it was just a big convoluted clusterfuck. And so I decided I'm just going to get it midnight, all right? Opening night, midnight. By the way, quick little caveat here. If you are one of the 2 people that I met in line, we didn't get to talk very much, but it was very nice to talk to you briefly, and thank you for saying hello. So, anywho, I arrived at GameStop, and I was expecting it to be, not a very big group, kind of 20, 30 people. I'd never gone to a GameStop midnight release. I'd always gone to Walmart or Best Buy, because usually people don't go there because they don't think to do it. They usually think to go to GameStop, but I had to do GameStop this time because Walmart was out of pre-orders, or at least the lazy fuck who told me they were was too lazy to go back and grab another sheet for me. Doesn't make sense? Whatever. So, went to GameStop, got everything taken care of, pull back in, see the huge line of like 200 people all lined up. It's like a whole Walmart length, like a whole Supercenter Walmart length of sidewalk is taken up on this line because the GameStop is right next to a Walmart. So it's hundreds of people, and it's not single file line. This is like giant clusters of people, like five abreast, like all the way up, and so it's ridiculous. And I came alone, and that's an important thing to throw in, because that's what I realized immediately, is that if you go to one of these gaming releases alone, you have no
reason to conform to any social norms of standing in line. But let me, put this example out there, okay? Now, if there are two people walking together, and you can tell they're together, and they start walking up through the line, people look at them and they're kind of, what the hell do you think you're doing? What are you doing up there? What are you doing in that line? That doesn't make sense. You're clearly walking up there with someone. There's two of you, so you're probably not looking for a third person. You're just cutting in line. Whereas, as a single person walking through, people just assume that I'm looking for someone. I just scour around. And so what I did is I effectively just slowly meandered past about 200 people. That's all that I did. I just walked by 200 people and then pretended to know someone at the front, made a little bit of small talk and stood there. And I thought that I had it made then. I was like, holy shit, I cannot believe this fucking worked. I'm going to get it before all these people, even though they've been here for hours. I'm such a manipulative fuck. And then I realized, shit, this is the line for everybody who did a pre-order with a group or some shit. I don't know. And so they started handing out all the games. And it became patently apparent then, oh shit, I didn't do this special kind of handout procedure, so I'm going to have to stand here and wait for half these people who pre-ordered it before I can even get mine, regardless of where I am in line. So I was really frustrated for a second, and I was like, God damn it, I really need to get back, start playing this game. I want to dominate in zombies and have some fun. And so then I thought, you know what I haven't done in a while, Taylor, is pretended to be sick for personal gain. So then I put on my saddest, most pathetic, sick, and rubbed my eyes even to try and get my eyes red and just trying to look shitty. Thank God I had a cold sore on my lip too. That added to the effect. Good news there. I looked as sad and sick as possible, and then there were about 5 GameStop employees out, which obviously they were each handing out games to the respective groups, And I went up to this girl because I figured she would be the most empathetic to my needs, and so I just looked at her this really sad face, and I was like, so can I pick the game up here? Because I first wanted to try and be maybe she'll just forget about it, she'll just hand me the game because I look so shitty even if my receipt's not right, but she didn't, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, sir, you're gonna have to go wait because you didn't pre-order. And I was like, oh, okay, do you mind if before I wait I just go in and use your restroom real quick? I'm sorry, I'm feeling so sick. Please, I promise. And she looked at me in a really confused way, okay, I mean, I want to help you, but we're really not supposed to. And so she said, we're not allowed to have people back there right now until all these games are handed out and all these groups are done. And then I just looked at her almost sad, threw a little cough out there and was like, please, I promise I'll come right back out. I don't mind waiting in line. Please, I just need to get in there. I feel like I'm going to throw up and I really don't want to do it out here. And then apparently vomit is just the magic word for this girl. And apparently GameStop, like many businesses I've found, don't appreciate regurgitated remains of former meals on the front of their stoop or anything. So I walked in there the whole time looking really sick, trying to play it off, and there was a couple guys behind the counter that I guarantee they would have not, played into that bullshit, but I didn't make eye contact with them. I just walked straight back and told them, oh, she said I could go to the bathroom. Now here's where the tricky part came in. Now, I didn't know 100% how long it was going to take for all these groups to get done, but I did know that as soon as they let people into the store, when I walked out of the bathroom, I could just blend in and just start buying, That's what I knew. And so I had to kind of time it, and I was listening like a fucking James Bond secret agent with my ear up against the door, trying to hear when the other people were coming in so then I could go out and try and slip into line unabated, And looking back on this, I'm kind of a lunatic now that I'm thinking about it, listening up with my ear against the door in a goddamn GameStop restroom, trying to get the name a few minutes before everyone else. Whatever, but this is the best part. And I can't take credit for this part. This is due to this chick just being awesome, So I walk out about 10 minutes after being in the bathroom. I didn't want to, come out too quick, because then they'd be like, that's suspicious. Maybe you didn't have to vomit, or maybe you weren't taking a shit and you're really sick or something. So I wanted to give it a little bit of time, but as I was walking out, my heart sank, because I was like, shit, my ears must suck, because there were already tons and tons of people in there, a lot of people in line already. And I was kind of disappointed, shit, I may actually have to walk back to the end of the line, and this whole fucking debacle may have been for nothing, and ended up making the whole process more convoluted and, time-consuming than possible. But as I'm walking out, and as I'm reconciling with myself the fact that this whole ploy was probably a failure, the girl from the store looks over, and she motioned at me, and was like, oh, get him first, get him up here, because he's sick, he needs to get home, he was just in there throwing up. And it was almost like I felt like I was the Queen of fucking England or something. I was like, what? Me? You want me to walk to the... Oh Lord, I'm blushing. And I couldn't believe... I was so happy, I wanted to just smile, but at the same time I had to keep up the facade of oh, Jesus, just give me the game. I can't even play it tonight. I gotta go home and vomit and just poop my brains out or something like that. I don't know. But I do think they realized they were swindled after I left and jogged back to my car. But that's the end of the story. I probably, all in all, I probably got the game probably 40 minutes early, I would say. There were a lot of people there. Unless they were going to be going ham on those registers, there just is no way that 3 people were getting through those hundreds of people that fast. So, saved some time, probably irritated some people, but, I don't care about them. It's all about me. Alright, that's it.
Was number 4. Number 5, we go to Max, and then we get Max, and Max was probably one of my favorite dogs I ever had. I got him for my birthday, and I remember having this conversation with my dad on the phone because they hadn't gotten the dog until pretty much immediately before my birthday, and so he called and asked me, he's like, what kind of dog do you want? Which, like, what the hell do you, like, say as a young kid? Like, I didn't know. I was going to be like, Cocker Spaniel, or like some shit like that. I was like, I want a dog that is black and brown and white. And that was it. And he was like, all right. And so then he came home a few minutes later and he got me a sheepdog. And it was black and brown and white, just like I wanted. And I named it Max. And he just would circle everything. He would circle everything because he was a sheepdog. Like, if you would just stand there completely still and he'd sprint around you like his life depended on it. If you were sitting watching TV on the couch, he would sprint around the couch like his life depended on it. And eventually, Max was having too good of a time with one of our family friends under a table in the kitchen, and he bit this kid's nipple really hard and drew blood. My mom was like, oh shit, we got to send Max off to the farm. And so we sent Max off to the farm, which I think was a vast, like, overreaction, because I'm pretty sure this kid was just pestering him, and Max was like, the hell, man, I'll bite your nip if you don't shut up. And then he kept pissing him off, and so he bit his nip, a man of his word, so to speak. So he went down to the farm, and my grandpa had a big old Silverado truck, probably the same one that Felicia was named in earlier in my life, and this dog still, it would circle a moving truck, and it did it all the time. It got to the point where my grandpa, when driving up his gravel road, he'd be going, 10, 15 miles an hour, and this dog would be circling him the whole time, just keeping pace around this truck, almost like a force field of some kind, like a weak dog force field that's not effective in the least and can be taken down if he trips in front of the car, which, as you probably saw coming, the dog eventually tripped in front of the car, got ran over, killed. Very unfortunate that, but I mean, at the same time, you can't really blame him. You're playing with fire like that, a dog circling your moving car, and you can't get him to stop. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, Jesus Christ, Max, what are you thinking? And so Max got run over that way, and that was unfortunate because he's my favorite pet up to this point, because Beans would have probably been pretty badass, but I was too young to really have a connection with Beans. That was number 5. Moving on to number 6. I had a praying mantis named Steve, and Steve the praying mantis, I caught him, I guess, when I was in probably 6th grade or so, just because I thought they were cool. I probably saw like a Discovery Channel special on them, and so I went out, caught one, brought it back in, put it in a cage, and he had a very sad death because for a while I couldn't drive, obviously, and my dad was like, if you want to keep this thing, go for it, but I'm not driving you out to buy crickets or anything. So I'm like, fine. So me and my younger brother would go out and we'd try and find crickets to feed this goddamn Steve praying mantis. And for the first week or so, we caught them pretty diligently. We're feeding him, watching him eat, and then the novelty of a praying mantis became really, really boring, and essentially I just became so lazy that I didn't get food for this thing and just let it starve to death in this cage. And every day I'd be like, nah, he doesn't need a cricket today. He had one like 5 days ago, and I think those things are like snakes. They can just keep going. And I'm like, oh no, it's been like 2 weeks, but he's holding together fine. He's probably just burning some fat. And then eventually he died. And if he weren't an insect, that would have been a terrible, awful thing to do, but it's not like those things feel pain anyway. So that was Steve, the praying mantis, which didn't really put any thought into that. Could have named him Ninja or Samurai or any number of cool things, like Raphael, the possibilities were endless, but, Steve it was, whatever. And that was number 6. Number 7 was Zoe. And I've mentioned Zoe before because Zoe was a cold-hearted hellcat bitch, just awful, terrible creature, because we went and we got her, and what was funny is we didn't consult my dad about this at all, just me, my mom, and my brother went to this lady's house who had a bunch of goddamn cats everywhere, which is weirder than I realized at the time, and I went over, I picked one up, and we were like, all right, let's take this one. So we took it back to the house, and as soon as we get there, we're playing with this cat, like, oh, we're going to name it Zoe, and we're having a good time with it. We put it down, first steps in the house, sprints away, down the basement, and then we had a huge pile of furniture in the unfinished area, and this thing just hid in there. And it must have been hiding in there for 10 hours, just chilling behind there. And we were like, Zoe, Zoe. Well, I don't know why we were yelling its name, because cats do not respond to anything, because they are terrible, terrible creatures that want nothing more than to claw your eyes out and eat your soul and then poop it out and then let a dog eat that shit. So that's not what it wants. And so it hid there. We finally got it out. We were so worried by putting a can of tuna out and opening it and letting Zoe come out and eat it. And then we carried her upstairs and we're like, we're not going to let that happen again. And then probably 15 minutes later, we put her down on the couch. We neglect to look at her for, the standard 4 seconds. And then we look over again and she's gone. And we spend the next hour trying to find this goddamn cat around the house. And it ends up being behind the freezer, strangely enough. And it had like a hollowed out back kind of freezer. So it was just hiding, chilling back there. So that was really shitty. So Zoe sucked ass toward the end of her life. She kept coming up behind us on the stairs and hissing at us. All I'd have to do is be walking down to go to school in, like, I guess, 8th grade. And this thing would just be like... and just slap and claw and itch and just tear at the back of your shins and your legs and just, well, there's not really a back of your shin, but you get my picture. And it was very, very unfortunate because this cat was just horrible. And eventually we didn't put it to sleep. We just gave it away. We were like, fuck you, Zoe. You suck, asshole. We're not keeping you around anymore, so you can go find your own way. And I hope it's dead. I hope it's dead right now. That cat was so terrible. So Zoe, if you're listening to this, I hate you, and you are not forgiven for scratching my ankle really bad that one time, and then it was a really bad deep cut, and so every time I would walk or like skate, because I was playing hockey at the time, it would tear it open again, tear it open again, tear it open again, and I'd get sweating in. It was really just exacerbating the stress of having an annoying bitch cat that wouldn't go away. I prayed every day that you would run away, Zoe, every day. Just want you to know, just in case you're listening, just putting that out there. So, that was number 7. Moving on to number 8. Wasn't technically my pet, but it was kind of my pet. Essentially, my younger brother's friend was going out of town, and he had a pet bird. And he was going out of town, and he was like, can you take care of my bird for the 3 days that we're gone? We're like, all right, whatever, we can take care of a bird for 3 days. What we didn't anticipate is that this huge, yellow, squawking son of a bitch would be loud at every juncture and never be quiet, never, ever, ever. And to add to this whole story, you should know that this was like a really expensive bird, like a $500 bird, like really, really expensive. I mean, I'm no like avian dealer like in the black market or some shit, so I don't really know the baseline for expensive animals, but it was pretty expensive. And so essentially, we took the bird, and it was squawking for like the first day. We put it in a cage in a room by itself, threw a sheet over it, and for like the first 30 minutes of that night, it was shrieking, and you could hear its wings beating and flapping, and then pretty suddenly it just stopped, and it kind of was just like, bam, no more noise, and everyone in the house was like, oh, thank goodness, we can go to bed. Next morning, my mom wakes up, and I wake up, and Nathan wakes up, and we all get up, go over into the next room to check on Sunshine, and we pull the sheet off, and lo and behold, Sunshine had gotten her little head lodged into between some of the wires on our cage and hung itself, and so it was just a limp, dead bird body hanging there. And then Nathan had to call his friend and explain how this bird had apparently committed suicide in the middle of the night after spending one day with us. Like, apparently we were that bad of a bird family, it just couldn't handle it anymore. So this bird hanged itself, and so I guess in addition to all the deaths, that's pretty much the worst one, because that one, maybe it had a really sad existence back at my brother's friend's house, and they just really didn't like it or something, but this seemed like an intentional suicide. It seemed like life is enough, I'm going to end it. So that was pretty ridiculous to see, but since it wasn't my bird, it was kind of hilarious at the same time, which sounds pretty sadistic, and it is pretty sadistic, but, sue me. It's a goddamn bird. I don't care. So that pretty much summarizes all of my pets that I've had throughout my life. I've probably had a couple more because it's basically been a genocide. Like, they just die like nobody's business. And right now I have a Black Lab Border Collie mix named Boz, and I have my little Bichon Frise Tobo. One lives at my mom's house, one lives at my dad's house, so they're not together all the time, but they get along well, and so it's only a matter of time until some horrific event befalls both of them. But hopefully, fingers crossed, that won't happen too soon. But hope you guys enjoyed this. Really no reason to tell this story other than the fact that I realized I'd never talked about any of my pets, and then once I started thinking about it today at work during some downtime, I'm like, holy shit, I'm pretty much a curse to pets, because they die all around me. They're just dropping like flies. Dropping like cats and dogs. Damn it. Should have just left it at flies. Anyway, that's all I gotta say. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I love you. So I got a lot of people saying they wanted to hear me talk about obsessive-compulsive disorder and my bout with it when I was like 11 or so, I think. Somewhere between 10 and 12, which, there we go. Found an answer. 10 and 12. right in between there, that's 11. There we go. I'm already smarter than I was 18 seconds ago. Figured something out. So I guess that's like 5th grade. It's probably right. OCD for me, I wasn't one of the really terrible severe cases, but I was bad enough that it irritates me when people pretend that they have OCD and they're like, oh my goodness, I just have to organize my pencils and that's just so funny. I'm just so obsessive compulsive. And oh, if my plate isn't set up just right, I just freak out. And I probably wash my hands like 3 times a day. Oh my goodness. And people who play it up like that, because that's really not what it is. It's really a terrible disorder if you have it. And when I was young, I did struggle with it, and the way I got over it eventually was I was on medicine for a while, but then I got off the medicine, and strangely enough, a few months after I got off the medicine, which is when you would expect a relapse, is when I stopped, exhibiting symptoms really, and I just kind of overcame it. And still, every once in a while, I guess I haven't in the last few years, but I'll still have an OCD moment, but I can conquer it now and not have to worry about it. So, OCD, a little bit of background. What is it? Obsessive compulsive disorder. It is essentially when you obsess over something to the point that you feel a compulsion to act on it. Most of these obsessions have to do with being afraid of something or anxious. So an example might be I would have the random thought that would pop in my head that if I didn't take my mom's fine china and break it out in the woods at night, that my dog's going to be dead when I wake up tomorrow morning. And the thing about it is, and that's just one example. There are tons and tons of them that I that I had over the year, I guess. And I did do that. I did take a china plate and break it out in the woods. That was one of the times that I did cave to the compulsion. Nobody found out. No big deal. Hopefully, Mom doesn't watch this and she's not mad. As far as the compulsions go, as I said, usually they have to do with fear or anxiety and trying to prevent something bad. Very rarely are they about acquiring something good. It's all on the defensive and trying to, just keep the suffering to a bare minimum, so to speak. And another one of these, the biggest one for me, had to do with a fear that myself or my family members and my loved ones or friends would burn in hell for all eternity. I was still young. My parents raised me religiously, and I went to private school, and so I was totally in the Christian wagon at the time, and I was absolutely horrified that people I love would be tortured for all eternity. And so I would constantly have these compulsions, like, for instance, if I don't trip my brother down the stairs, my mom's going to burn in hell. And it doesn't make any sense, and you realize at the time it doesn't make any sense. And the problem with it isn't the thought of tripping your brother down the stairs, because on an internal level, I knew that I had no desire whatsoever to hurt him. I had no desire. It wasn't in me. I didn't want to. So it's not as though I have issues with, the weird thoughts that are associated with OCD, because deep down, at least me, I can't speak for everyone who has had the disorder, I didn't feel an actual desire to act on any of them. For me, it was always on the defensive. I didn't actually want to do any violent things. That was what terrorized me so much. But that wasn't what made me feel guilty and stuff. What made me just feel bad and shitty all the time was just how much your mind focuses on these myopic, stupid, just infinitesimally just ridiculous things that don't matter whatsoever. And the people who joke around about it, when they joke around, they probably mean they spent 10 minutes organizing something tops. I'm talking that I would spend entire days doing worthless, menial tasks for no reason. I remember one night I spent 8 hours after school just organizing a bucket of Legos for no reason whatsoever. It was just a random bucket of Legos that my brother had. There was no reason to do it at all, because we just play in it and rummage around in it and mix them all up anyway. There was no reason. But I spent all night doing it just because I was afraid of something. I don't even remember what, if I didn't do it. So that's the frustration of it, just how much time you waste. Also stuff like just sitting in class, you can't focus. You're constantly worried about making sure that everything's balanced, if that's your thing, or that you don't look at anyone, or whatever the case may be, because it's difficult to give examples, because really, these things are just so obscenely random that you can't even make it up. That really is how it is. So I figured I may as well end this little section of me talking about my OCD by giving a funny story of a time in which I gave in to one of these temptations, and I enjoyed it rather thoroughly, at least initially. And it goes back to 5th grade, as I said, and we were playing dodgeball in gym that day. And when you're playing dodgeball with fifth grades, fifth grades, Jesus, fifth graders, boys and girls, you have to make sure that you're not playing across a whole basketball court. You have to make sure that instead of kids being able to back up all the way to the baseline, you need to make sure that kids are only able to back up to, say, the three-point line to make sure that kids are staying closer because little girls and undeveloped boys can't throw very far. I was fortunate enough, however, to be much larger than most of the guys at this age, and so I could throw the ball pretty well. And I was really, really not good at throwing anything, and any of my friends can attest to this who have seen me try to throw a football or try to throw a baseball. It's really, really embarrassing, actually. But there was just something about those old, they don't use them anymore kind of dodgeballs because they're kind of hard, rough, brittle, just, grippy plastic. They're very, very durable kind of balls. And they fit really well in your hand. And as with any kind of dodgeball game, there were like 10 balls out there, of which like friggin' 1 or 2 were good. The rest of them were just shit balls that nobody wanted. So by complete happenstance, I get one of the good balls. And the kid who's on the other team across from me, because I was playing pretty aggressively and so is he, and we'll call him Trevor because there's no reason for me to make up names, but I have fun doing it, so we're going to oblige that as well. So this kid, Trevor, had an infamous habit of really getting passionate about games and PE, but sucking ass at all of them and being annoying as shit in the process. And I've had just a random compulsion just standing there, just gazing across at him during that game where I had that ball in my hand, where I had that red ball in my hand, and I just had this compulsion. I just had to hit him in the face with the ball, or I just knew that my mom was going to die in a car crash on the way to pick me up. And I once again, the second that thought pops into your mind, doesn't make any goddamn sense. You immediately write it off as ridiculous, but you can't stop thinking about it. It just swarms over you. And for once, instead of just dealing with it, I just thought, screw it, and said like the fifth grade version of like, fuck that, and just decided to haul ass out and just beat him right in the face. And I just wound up so hard after getting as close as humanly possible, like within atoms of girth, away from the middle line that you weren't allowed to touch without getting in trouble. Like you have to have an electron microscope to see how close I was to not cheating. And I got up there and just went back, and every just fiber of my being was taut with energy. Every just ounce of oomph that I had was thrown into this ball. This ball was going so goddamn fast. I swear to God, if you had a picture, I would have looked like a freaking Super Saiyan just throwing that ball. As soon as I threw it, the whole freaking auditorium, the whole gym, which also was an auditorium, just bam, sonic boom, girls falling over all over the place. But not Trevor, almost said his real name there, not Trevor. That ball was soaring towards him like a freaking cannonball. Hits him square in the schnoz. Not in the right cheek, not in the left cheek, square in the schnoz, 100% right in the face. And at that moment, when it hit him, and the air and just compressed on his face, and I could see the displeasure and the grimace, and as that ball ricocheted off of his head, and that resounding, just whinnying, just resonance of the air inside the ball was just, making that hum in the air, and everybody was kind of silent, looking at the ramifications of my wondrous toss. I felt great. I felt wonderful. I was just on top of the world. And then, I guess 2 seconds later, I looked back and realized that I hit that kid so hard in the face that he got blood on a red rubber dodgeball. Now that is my claim to fame, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. And it's just a coincidence that it actually has to do with OCD, which, if the person who happens to be Trevor is listening, and you know who you are, no, you probably don't, my bad. So, I did have a girl follow me home from one of my classes, but I didn't, it wasn't like, I don't want to make it sound like she's a creeper, or, well, actually, you know what, here we go, because, yeah, she was. I was in one of my classes, and this girl was sitting next to me, and she walked in kind of late, and she sat by me because it was the only open spot, and it was kind of on the corner of the two tables, and so it was just an uncomfortable area, and I knew immediately I would be annoyed by this chick, because she started asking every imaginable question right in the beginning of class. Like, the teacher's trying to explain the fucking syllabus, and she's like, but what about this? What about this? What about that? But who does this? And what is this graded for? And all that, excuse me, and all that garbage. And I just wanted to be like, my God, give the professor a minute, and she will get to all those things. I want to punch you in the face as hard as I can. But from that point, she started kind of getting a little chummy with me, and it was kind of uncomfortable. I'm not used to that. I'm not some dashing, handsome dude, so it's not like chicks are constantly approaching me. And so she was kind of like almost putting her leg way too close to mine, and it was clearly not the kind of leg placement where it's like, oops, we accidentally brushed legs. It was like she was trying to like tap my leg with hers, and I was being very overtly kind of paying attention to the class and trying to make sure. I was giving her a polite smile, and in the middle of the class, this continues. I don't really know how to respond. It's one of those things where if I did that to a chick and I just kind of rubbed my leg up against her and was being kind of weird, and don't get the idea that this was like basic instinct, crazy leg movements of seduction. This was just kind of like a weird rub. It went from a tapping to kind of like a weird rub. And if I were doing that to a chick, and the chick didn't want me to do that, she'd probably be like, ew, pervert, gross, and slap me. But as a dude, you can't do that. You kind of have to be like, okay, I don't really know the procedure here, because if you do ask him to stop, someone's going to be like, what are you, a faggot, or something like that. And so I'm sitting there and I deal with this the whole class, and I stand up and I'm going to try and get out of there as fast as possible, because I am very good at packing up quickly at the end of class. But this chick must have the gold Olympic medal for that, because she threw everything in there immediately and just started following me right on my heels. And this class is so far away from my apartment, it's ridiculous. It's like a 2-mile walk, and I walk there because it's a great way to stay in shape. No, not really, because I don't want to waste gas and spend like $6 on friggin' whatever they are, parking meters. And so I start walking back, and she kind of does that little jog and catch up, and we start talking a little bit. It becomes really apparent quickly that this wasn't a front that she put on of being annoying. This was just a genuinely annoying person. I kind of felt bad for her. She was just irritating. And she gave off that vibe of someone who just kind of has a social disorder. You know how you get that vibe? She was clearly not stupid. She was in a high-level course with me, but she gave off that vibe of like not getting social cues, not understanding that I was kind of like mentioning like texting another girl as I was walking, or, trying to manufacture calls that I might need to make, just anything to show her like, hey, I'm really trying to be polite, but, I'm not interested, and I can tell from your weird leg rubbing that you kind of are. And, she wasn't ugly, but she definitely is not what I would consider cute, but she wasn't fat, so, who knows what was under those clothes. That's all stands to reason that she's got a rockin' bod. I'm just kidding. But, anywho, we start walking back, and when I say that it's about a 2-mile walk, I'm really not exaggerating that much. It probably is well over a mile, not 2 miles, but it's a long way, and in the 10-degree weather, that's pretty bracing, and it's uncomfortable. And so we keep walking, and I ask her, I'm like, oh, well, where are you going? Are you going to the bus? Are you going to your car or something? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm going to the bus. And so by the time we get to the bus stop, and this is what was mind-blowing to me, that's still about 3/4 of a mile from my house. And she walked right past the bus after I kind of said, all right, well, I'll see you in class on Tuesday or whatever. And she was like, oh, okay, I can actually come back to the bus. Another one leaves in like 20 minutes. And I didn't know what to say. I was kind of like, okay, that's all right. Like, okay, I didn't know what that meant. I thought she meant, oh, I'm going to walk in the student center and get something to eat. But instead, she just starts fucking following me home. And she's like, where are you going? Where are you parked? And I was like, oh, I'm walking back to my apartment. I live on, way over there, like a mile that way. And she was like, oh, okay. And that was it. She didn't say, oh, okay, I'll walk with you, or, oh, okay, I'll go back to the bus, or, oh, okay, I'll wait here for a friend until I get on the next bus, or, oh, okay, I'm going to come home and then stab you in the back of the neck with a kitchen knife and then bury your body in the back of the woods, or whatever her strange plans were. But I was so convinced, and I remain convinced, that she has at least some kind of Asperger's or something, that she just doesn't get social cues, that I couldn't bring myself to be like, actually, no, get the fuck out of here, you bitch! And just, because that would be unbecoming of a gentleman like myself. And so I just started walking back to my apartment, and this chick just walked with me. And for the most, probably about 50 to 60% of the time, she wasn't even, we weren't even talking, just walking in silence. And she was kind of like walking a little bit too close to me, like she wanted me to like grab her hand or something, and it was just weird. It was like she was moving too fast. It was like, Jesus Christ, like, what is happening in your head? Did you think that when we sat down in class an hour and a half ago that we suddenly started dating, and then you were trying to get, to the first base, rubbing my leg, and now you're trying to get me to hold your hand on the way home? You're taking this relationship way too quick, lady. I mean, I don't even know your fucking name, and I'm pretty sure that you have Asperger's. Nothing wrong with that, to each their own. Well, I guess it's not really a choice if you have that, but it is overdiagnosed, but we'll talk about that in another episode of something, even though I'm not qualified enough to discuss it. So, anywho, we walk back, and I wish there was some crazy climactic ending to this story, like, and then we got back and we banged on my couch, except I don't wish that, because that would have been unpleasant. But
all that happened is we got to about the entrance of my neighborhood, which really isn't a neighborhood, just about a 200-yard street until you get to my building, and I kind of stopped there because I realized if I don't tell this girl that I'm leaving, she is going to walk into my apartment with me. Like, she's just going to follow me in. Like, that's the level of social ineptitude this lady was radiating. To say lady is unfair. She's probably like, I don't know, 19 years old. 19 or 20 at least. And so I just had to stop and turn to her and say, hey, it was really nice to meet you. What's your name? And I realized immediately, I was like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have asked what's your name right there, because now she's going to think, oh my god, he didn't know my name the whole time? But apparently she doesn't have any reservations with social things like that anyway, so it didn't matter. She told me her name. I told her my name, and I was like, all right, well, I will talk to you on Tuesday. Like, kind of like gave, the look you give people when you're waiting for an elevator. You kind of just raise your eyebrows to kind of be like, I see ya. Nothing to say, though. Well, that's what I did. I kind of just said goodbye, then, like, raised my eyebrows and did, like, that grimace smile, like, ee, and then slowly, like, did a couple backward steps and then just walked back to my apartment. And what I felt like a serial killer had decided not to kill me at the last second, and that he said, I want you to turn around and I want you to walk 100 paces, and if you turn back, I'm going to shoot you. Because I kept wanting to turn back, because I'm like, I can feel her. I can feel her looking at me. I can feel her eyes burning a hole in the back of my skull. What the fuck? What do I do? Why is she so into me? Pick a better-looking guy. There's 50,000 of them here. Jesus Christ. But, it was just awkward, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how I'm going to go to class with this girl, because I guarantee, unless I get to class last every single day, and that's going to be difficult to orchestrate, my god, she's going to sit next to me, and I don't want her to be following me home every day. It's like a dog that I don't want to have sex with. Well, no, that wasn't a good example. Actually, yeah, we're going to let it stay there.
Alright, so this story begins when I was at a strip club, and so I was banging this chick, right? And we had just gone into the back room, throwing some hundreds on the ground, no big, flipping them up in the air, being a big spender and whatnot, about to bring a few more girls back, make it a game, and then all of a sudden I looked down and realized, oh damn, not using protection, and then got a little bit too wasted. Next thing I know, wake up, and I had herpes. So, actually, no, that's 100% a lie. I just knew that everyone would be like, misleading title, I'm going to go cry about it on the internet, and just be a little bitch. And so I thought I would just make something up in the beginning. But no, that didn't happen. That's not my herpes story. And actually, it's not even the kind of herpes that you get from sex, I don't think. Unless maybe this is I was tricked and hoodwinked at one point in my life. But it's like just like a fever blister, like a herpes sore, it's called like a cold sore or a canker sore. There's like a bunch of different names for it. But it was one of those things, and so right off the bat, I get these things like once every 2 or 3 years, so not often in the least, okay? And I had probably the worst timed one of these little blister breakout things on my lip in the history of mankind. And it was the first day that I went down for college, actually. It was the day I was moving in. So usually they take like a day to like pop up. So like the day before I was going down there, like I saw something like right on the top of my lip. If you like take your index finger and just like put it right under your nose and like pull down to your lip, that little V area, yeah, that like whole area was just like a boom, just like a blister. Like it was awful. And I could see it coming in, and I was like, oh God, please don't let this be here when I meet my roommate tomorrow, and when I meet all the guys and girls and all my hopefully friends for the year in my dorm. Like, I'm not looking for that. Please, oh my God, please go away. So I go to bed, throwing out prayers to like every single god I knew. I was even like throwing out just like random ones, just like saying like, hey, hope you grab this, like Thor, something like that. But nothing happened. Woke up the next morning, and it was horrible. Just like a huge boil on the upper part of my lip, and I was like, fuck, now I gotta go to school. And so I had to get all of my shit together, like pack it in the car super early in the morning. I'm so disheveled and looking shitty, and I just feel like there's no reason to even like look presentable, because I'm just sitting there so like depressed that I feel like I'm gonna meet all my future friends, or I don't think they're gonna be friends, because I'm my mindset going into this is like 7th grade first day, not even college first day. I don't know why I was freaking out so much, but I was. And so I was driving down there. We stop at a gas station. I get out one more time, and I just look in the mirror in the bathroom, like, oh my God, I look so shitty. So I try to straighten up a little bit in there, but overall, still, nothing's going to take attention. I could have been wearing like a tuxedo and like holding sparklers and waving them in the air with like birds doing tricks over my head, and everyone I met would have looked directly at my lip. Is how distracting that thing was. And so I'm just like, oh my God, I'm throwing back ideas with my mom, like, oh, can I just use like makeup or something? And she's like, you could try this. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to use, it's almost worse to get caught with something like that, like using makeup. It's like I might as well not put a toupee of sorts over this thing and hope for the best. I may as well just embrace it and be a man. And so that's what I decided to do. I get to school, start unloading all my stuff. I got there a little bit before my roommate, and so we were pretty much done setting up when my roommate came in, and immediately he's a pretty nice dude. We didn't end up getting along later in the year, but he was okay on the first day. Met his parents. It was almost, I felt like a girl with huge tits that day because I could tell everyone was like glancing at this blister thing, and it was just disgusting. And I even felt bad about it because even when I go to the bathroom and like do if like my contact was like itching me or something, and I had to fix it, I would just be looking in the mirror and I'm like, shit, I was supposed to be fixing my contacts, but it's been like 30 seconds and I haven't taken my eye off of this disgusting just cesspool of bacteria and yickiness right there. And so anyway, my parents end up leaving. It's a big emotional thing for them because I was the oldest child, but there wasn't any death in the family or something. So anywho, they leave. Me and my roommate are there. We're like, what do we do now? We're like, all right, let's just walk around and meet other people. So everybody else pretty much started like shifting around, and everybody's kind of anxious because it's college. It's your first day. You don't know what to expect, and that's something you have to remember. Pro tip for college is if you feel like you don't know what you're doing, like freshman year, that's okay because everyone else doesn't know what they're doing either. And so just play it up like you know what you're doing, and people won't ask questions. Just fake it till you make it, and that's really just that's really very applicable there. All right, so we walk out, we start meeting people, and for some for some weird reason, it seemed like all the guys finished getting set up way before the girls. Maybe that's just like a known thing; they take way longer to set up, but like all their like TVs and all the shit you have to have in your room, probably because they have decorations and we just kind of have like a few posters, if that. And so and it was obviously a co-ed dorm, like co-ed floor, so you'd have like girl neighbors and whatnot. And so I was walking over to this back room. And it was like one of the, if you've lived in a dorm before, you know these rooms where you can buy special kind of bigger dorms. Some of those are offered that are a little bit more spacious. And so we met a few guys that lived in one of those, and then a few more guys came in, and all ended up like we were all meeting each other, like 6 or 7 dudes in there. And then out of nowhere, I'd pretty much forgotten about this blister thing because I'd met everyone, and I was just starting to get, friendly and just like starting to make friends. I'm like, all right, I'm getting along with these guys. I've almost completely forgotten about this huge, baboon's asshole right here in the middle of my lip. And then before I know it, like a bunch of girls started coming in that were also on our floor, and immediately, as soon as a bunch of attractive college girls walk in, I'm like, oh, fuck. And so my self-confidence just drains because of this huge thing on my lip, and I'm like, shit, I should probably just introduce myself quickly and then get out of here. But that ended up not happening. I ended up having a long, decent talk, but of course, I felt like the Scarlett Johansson's boobs in the room, even though I was probably staring at their boobs a little bit too. I can't feel too bad about that. At least I was getting a little bit of pleasure from staring at boobs. They were getting a lot of from staring at that thing. So, I guess I came out on top. Win-win. Not really a win-win. I was the only party there, so win. Okay. So then after a little while, I ended up going back to my room because my roommate had left, and I just wanted to go see what he was up to. And it was a little bit of a walk from this room back to my dorm, and so I walked over there, and on the way there, I ran into this girl in the hallway. And this is where the story gets like kind of a strangely happy ending, but on a more real level, not a really happy ending at all. But meet up with her in the hallway. Had no idea who this girl was, but I looked and I saw that she had like this little bump on her lip too, and it was like just one of those like just glance at someone and you both realize like the other person has been so super self-conscious about this all day, just like you have. And it was one of the weirdest scenarios like that ever. And I think it was just because we were both so just drained and out of it in a new like situation that we felt okay to talk to each other. And so she ended up being like, that'll go away a lot faster if you put this like moisturizing stuff on it. And I was like, oh, okay, like didn't really know what to say. And she was like, yeah, that's what I put on this and it's going away. It's just a cold sore, no big deal. And of course, that's exactly what I would say to someone, just like, oh, it's just a cold sore. But in my head, I was thinking about her. I'm like, is that really a cold sore or is that some herpes? And she was probably thinking, that's some herpes. I didn't know cold sore. But she ended up taking me back to her room and no, not doing what you imagine, giving me that creep stuff. And I was like, okay, well, it was nice to meet you. And ended up hanging out with her, excuse me, frog in my throat. Ended up hanging out with her quite a bit that semester. But anyway, that's the end of the story. It's kind of happy at the end a little bit, I guess. But for the most part, it was just really awkward and kind of ruined my first day in college. An experience that should have been magical, but instead was turned to grim ashes in my mouth. That's the end. Not really a moral. Take it as you will. Amen. Love you. So I've always made it pretty clear that I'm not a religious guy, but I think I may have to change that because yesterday I found out that I'm God, surprise to me. Turns out an atheist is actually God himself, but don't get too excited. I'm not like a Jesus kind of God that can do everything. I'm more like one of those minor like Egyptian God kind of people, and I found this out yesterday that I have complete and utter control over insects, just listen. Don't click off the video. Just listen. All right, so this is a miracle. This is all the proof you need, and it's clear. So here's the story. Get back into Columbia, and of course, my apartment is empty. Didn't have any food or anything because I just came back from spring break. And so yesterday I went out to the store, get a bunch of food to stock up my apartment again. So I'm at Walmart getting all my stuff, and after I get the huge load of groceries, I'm carrying it all out to the car. And of course, it's a hot, sweltering day in mid-Missouri, and it's just thick and humid as shit all the time here. And so I'm just getting sweaty, just loading all this stuff in the car. So I'm doing it pretty haphazardly. And as I'm walking out, pushing it, that's the first time I felt it. I felt a little itch on my foot. So I reached down and I scratched. And the kind of shoes that I was wearing are Sperry's. I'll put a picture of those up here. Just kind of loose, comfortable loafer type shoes. So I just itched my foot, didn't really think about it, and kept walking. Then as I was loading all my stuff up, just kind of haphazardly throwing it into the trunk, I felt that itch on my foot again. So I reached down, scratched, didn't really think much of it. Then I went and got in the car and started driving out of the parking lot. And as I turned onto the main road to head back to my apartment, and I live about 10 minutes away from this store, I felt another itch on my foot. And so I reached down to scratch. And as I was reaching down to scratch it, I actually looked down with it, because until this point I was just kind of absent-mindedly scratching an itch, as you usually do. And as I look down and as I'm moving my hand to scratch my foot, I look in and I can see a wasp halfway in my shoe and halfway out of my shoe just crawling on my foot. And like, if you had asked me how I thought I would react in that situation, I would think that I would have just spazzed out and just gotten into a car accident. But that really, I surprised myself, because that's not at all what I did. I sat there, I immediately turned off the music and the air conditioning, which makes no sense. It's like, I was thinking in my head, like, oh shit, if this wasp hears We Are Young on the radio one more time, he's going to blow his brains out and kill me. Friggin' murder-suicide, it'd be a shame. But I don't know why I assumed that the bug wouldn't want to hear the music or the air conditioning, but that was just my irrational self, like, oh shit, better turn everything off and try and be quiet. And so, like, as I'm driving, I just sit there and I'm like, what's the procedure? What do I do? Do I pull over and, like, get out and wildly scream and shake until this wasp comes off me? Or do I try and drive all the way home with it? Or what do I do? And I had just gotten onto the main highway, and so it wasn't like I could just, whip back off the road or just pull onto a shoulder with all these cars whipping by me. That's not a very good idea in a college town, anyone will tell you. And so, thinking kind of quickly, after I, did the stupid thing of turning off the music and the air, I moved my right foot, which is obviously my driving foot and the one that had to be on it, over to the right, and I started driving with my left foot, which I didn't realize how much more difficult it is to drive with your left foot. Once you're so used to driving with your right foot, it's pretty difficult. But I get about halfway home, and about until I was halfway home, I was thinking in my head ways that I could kill the bug, but I was too afraid to, like, take initiative because I didn't want to try and slap it and miss, and then it's flying around stinging me in the neck and whatnot, and it's a wasp, and so, clearly it can sting me as many times as it wants. Because, like, at least bees provide something to society, honey. Like, wasps just live to fuck shit up. That's all that they do. They're just rabble-rousers. That's all. And so, about halfway through the trip back to my apartment, and it seemed like it was a friggin' hour-long odyssey, not a short little drive, I just decided, I'm like, no, I can do this. If I just keep being really still and driving slowly and not lurching, I can get all the way home with this wasp still on my foot. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably the best thing. That's the best thing. So my number one priority, I'm like, all right, just got to get home. I'll step out, and as soon as the wasp is outside, it's going to fly away for sure. There's no way it's going to sting me. I can do it. And so I'm driving, being as slow as possible, trying not to stop, like, all lurchy, but keep in mind I'm driving with my left foot. So to anyone watching my car, I probably looked like a goddamn lunatic or Helen Keller behind the wheel, haphazardly looking at my leg for 50% of the drive because I was too terrified to take my eyes off of it because the friggin' wasp kept tickling the bottom side of my foot and crawling under it. The worst part was when it kind of like crawled under the arch of my foot, and I had to lift my foot off of the the bottom of my shoe, because otherwise I just would have crushed it. And I was thinking about crushing it, but I was like, oh shit, I don't want to step on the stinger. That would probably be an unpleasant surprise. And so I ended up getting back to my apartment, pulling into the drive where I park, and I'm so proud of myself at this point. I'm just feeling elated. I'm like, oh my god, this is a furious, like, hornet wasp. Like, I'm gonna put a picture of a wasp so you guys can see. This was not a trifling wasp. This was one of those wasps that when you see it outside, you think, you know what, I'm gonna go inside. I'm not gonna hang outside today. And so the most interesting thing, though, is as I pulled in, my entire mindset changed. Like, at first, I was like, I just gotta get out of this car and run and get that wasp off of me. I don't want to get stung. But then, as soon as I stopped and I saw that the wasp was still chilling there on my foot as I was sitting in my car and it was off, I just felt to myself, I was like, oh yeah, you're in my world now, you son of a bitch. All my attention is turned on you. You think you can piss me off on a drive home and itch my foot and threaten to sting me and not get punished? And I was just livid. And so I stepped out of the car because I figured the best way to kill it would be outside of the car, obviously. So if I do fail, it flies away and doesn't just assault me. And so I step out of the car, and it's still on the top of my foot. And almost as though it was prepared to accept its death sentence, it crawled onto the very top, the bridge part of my foot, on my right foot. And so then what I did is I took my left foot and I decided to take one for the team, and I just stomped the shit out of my right foot. And just BAM! Just instant death for that little bastard. And it felt good, because since I am God of the Bugs, I don't feel that guilty about killing it, but at the same time, I do feel kind of guilty about using my powers to keep it, sedentary that whole time, just to kill it, I mean, it's a power that I'm going to have to learn to deal with, and with great power comes great responsibility. Who's to say in 10 years if I'll have trained some sort of wasp or hornet army to do my bidding? Who's to say, The world is my oyster at this point, so if I'm not uploading as much, you guys know why. Probably formatting some form of insect army. Anyway, that's it.
Hey, what's up, douchebags? It's time for a story, so please shut your mouth, sit around in a nice semicircle if you have friends or family with you, turn up the volume on your computer so you can hear every bit of my pitch as I tell you this harrowing tale. But, that's kind of a lie because it's about finals week, but whatever. It's still pretty scary. Finals suck, but it's not scary for me. It was incredibly entertaining for me. But this story begins when I was going into an exam. Everybody is there early for the class, pouring through their notes, trying to learn everything at the last second that they don't already know and feel like they know. And so, traditional pre-exam lecture hall, exactly what you would expect. And so I was sitting in the front row because I always sit in the front row for exam days because you get the exam first. There's no reason to sit in the back, then you have to wait. That's silliness. So sit in the front row, and everybody around me is just nose deep right in their book and their notes trying to figure this stuff out. Remember the equations and everything. And the girl next to me was sitting there with her iPod in, kind of like tapping her finger on her desk, and I didn't pay any heed to it. Some people like to listen to music before they take an exam, kind of relax, mellow themselves out. That makes sense. No problem there. I just kept doing my own thing, and there was one section of the text that I really didn't understand. I didn't understand how to do this equation. You should know I am not good at math, and this isn't even like a hard math class. This was a upper-level finance course, and so it really wasn't a lot of laborious math work, but even for me, it's intimidating. I'm not good with numbers. I always kind of freak out when I see a bunch of numbers in an equation or in a word problem, and I feel like kind of overwhelmed, and I have difficulties organizing it, but that's aside from the point. So I turned to this girl, and I kind of, gestured, not like, pulled her ear things out, but kind of like gestured, like, hey, can you help me with this, just pointing at my book, and you know how sometimes you learn something better by explaining it to someone? Well, this was the opposite effect of that. She started explaining it to me, and about 20 seconds into her explanation, I remembered exactly how I had been taught to do it, and I knew she was 100% wrong, like totally off base, like had no idea, like she wasn't even close. And so I just kind of like kept humoring her, like, oh yeah, but I think, oh, I remember now, you're supposed to do this. And she kind of like looked embarrassed and was like, oh, I guess, yeah, I must have, forgot that for a second. Oh, my bad. And she just kept on listening to her music and waiting, and she seemed pretty confident about the test. When I asked her, how do you feel about this, she was like, oh, I feel pretty good. I didn't study that much, but this stuff's pretty easy. And, when people say that, that's fine. I mean, to me, this stuff wasn't easy, but things come easily to different people. So we're sitting there, the guy comes in with a big stack of tests, tells everybody to put everything away, and starts handing out the tests. So he walks up to our row, takes out the tests, big fatty packets, and hands it to me. I pass it to this girl, and so on and so forth. Now, the first, 20 minutes or so of this test, I'm so focused in on it, really trying to just pour my all and do my best, that I really didn't notice anything around me, what was happening. Now, as it started to get further and further into the test, it became apparent that this girl just was completely stuck on the first page, and she was doing little glances over towards my paper, and I'm not like one of those assholes who's going to be like shielding my paper, like, oh, you can't look off me, but I mean, I don't understand what she was trying to figure out in the first place with it, because all the problems were switched around, and she couldn't have copied even if she wanted to, but she started to get this distressed look, and I kind of paid attention out of my periphery, giving 99% of my attention to the test, the other 1% kind of checking out what this girl was doing, and she kind of just sat there, like slumped over a little bit. Like, you know how a kid on Christmas who maybe didn't get what they want, they'll kind of sit down with a hump and be like, and like throw their shoulders down a little bit and then lean forward on one elbow on their face and just kind of be antsy. That's exactly what she started to do. She started to get really antsy. She even did an audible, like, it's kind of like a frustrated humph like that. And it quickly deteriorated from there. I'm still sitting there taking the test. This is in the front row, so everybody can see from behind. And out of nowhere, this girl just puts her head down on her desk and just lays there, right in the middle of the test. Everybody's taking the test. We're in the front row. The professor can see this, or the TA, the guy that administered the test, can see it, kind of like inquisitively looks up and looks at her, and then gave me an eye look of like, what the hell's going on here? And I just kind of gave him that eye look, that universal eyebrow raise of, I don't know what's going on either, man. No clue. And so I guess he assumed that I knew her because we were the only two people on that side of the front row. And so she has her head down in her arms, and then out of nowhere I start to hear like a little bit, exasperated breathing, just a little bit like someone was like getting ready to cry. And I realized this girl's like getting ready to freaking cry here over an exam, like about to like break down and cry because she doesn't know how to do anything on this test. And this was it wasn't our final exam, but it was the last test before the optional cumulative final exam. And so it was the last chance to really bolster your grade up, because Lord knows the last one's going to be harder. And if it's optional, you want to do your best to avoid it. And so she just went from so cocky and confident, just like 30 minutes prior to on her face, like arms laid apart like a kid who didn't get what they wanted for Christmas, laying down, and starts to like sob a little bit. Not loud crying, but enough that like probably a few people in the row behind me and the row behind that could notice this, And it just got to the point where the TA walked up to her and was like, "What's wrong? Like, what's wrong?" And she just was like, I don't know any of this. I thought I knew it, and I don't know it." And she just like went on one of those like crying, like meandering kind of things. And he had to like shush this girl and be like, "Okay, there's a final. You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine." And so this girl just sat there for like 10 more minutes after the TA was like, "Do you want me just to take your test and you can go?" And it was like a kid who was eating dinner. She's like, "No, I'll try a little bit more." And it's just that kind of thing. Just hilarious. Like just an absolutely ridiculous series of events. And then eventually, about 5 or 6 minutes later, way before anybody else had finished the test, because it was impossible to finish it that fast, she just got up and went and turned her test in and left. And it just blew my mind. Like, I was imagining, like, what would have been his reaction if, like, me as a dude had did that. Like, if I just started, like, I don't even know it. And, like, I guarantee he would have been like, are you high or something, man? What the hell are you doing? Like, Jesus Christ, it's an exam. But it was such a weird experience to just see someone go through all of those emotions from, I know this, I can do it, listening to music, confident, to, oh, maybe I don't know it as well as I thought. This guy kind of just corrected me on something that's, integral to the understanding of these concepts. And then down to, oh my God, I don't know any of these. What am I going to do? Maybe I can fudge my way through it. Down to, oh, life is over. And it was an entertaining series of events. So probably very unpleasant for her, but I wish her the best, whoever she may be on the next exam. So, yeah. No real moral to this story aside from, prepare for exams because it's important and it's a great way to stay in shape. The end.
Haven't seen it. So, anywho, first, onto the story, I should establish that this actually takes place on the same playground as the last story, so that's a little bit of an interesting tidbit, but it was 2 or 3 years later. I was in 5th grade, and what you have to realize about my school is that unlike most grade schools, it did not end at 5th grade. Most middle schools go from 6th to 8th. My middle school went from 7th to 8th, and so actually 6th grade was technically still a part of grade school, and so instead of the 5th graders being the big head honchos on campus, the biggest fish in the tiniest little pond, it was the 6th graders who were the biggest fish. And it all kind of culminated one day. People used to do something called like acrobatic challenge or some stupid name that only children would think of. And it was basically where people would get on the playground, on the backside of the playground where the teacher who was advising and watching wouldn't see, and they would try and do cartwheels and front flips and stuff. And it may sound kind of lame, but some of these kids were doing ridiculous things. And when I talk about the jungle gym and the monkey bars, what you have to realize is that these monkey bars were about 7 feet in the air. Now, that's no trifling matter for a 4'2", 5th grader. That's a big distance. Like, these were so high that it was difficult to jump up and grab them for a lot of the students. And essentially, that is where the best of the best came to do their challenges and to do as best they can. And usually, it was sufficient for someone just to jump off and kind of, land on their feet and do like a roll after that, like a little somersault kind of thing. And that was pretty impressive because we were kids and hell, we're impressed easily. But one day, it came about where there were two kids in the grade above me, the sixth graders, and they were always challenging the fifth graders because they knew they could beat them. And these two kids would always duke it out at the end of every acrobatic challenge kind of thing. And it was almost like a fight club kind of thing because we knew immediately if a teacher were to walk back and see all of us doing this, we would immediately get in trouble and have to spend our next like 5 recesses doing jack shit or some sort of boring ass notebook. And so these two kids, still remember their names, Jared and David. They would get up on top of the monkey bars and they would do the standard jump off, and then they would hit the ground and kind of buckle their legs and then go into a somersault or maybe into a cartwheel or something pretty impressive for a sixth grader. And one day they started calling each other out really intensely, and it wasn't so much like an animosity. They were kind of good friends, but at the same time they were trying to show up all the fifth graders and all the other sixth graders and impress all those cute little 10 and 11-year-old teeny bopper girls that were all watching, because the girls would come and watch, and so the dudes they spent a lot of time trying to impress them. And so what happened first is that David, the kid who was kind of understood to be the less good person, he got up there on top of this giant, I'm saying from the perspective of a child, this 7-foot tall monkey bars. And instead of just kind of crouching on there like you usually would and kind of having your hands wrapped around the bars while you're in kind of the squatting poop position, so you didn't have to stand up and balance on the monkey bars all just on your feet and be 13 feet in the air. He just stood up completely on one of the bars and was balancing, not using the horizontal bars to help him, and he went all out, just out of nowhere. I can still remember watching this. He went all out for a front flip, just boom, just jumped up as high as he could. He was so high in the air. I am shocked that the teacher who was on duty didn't turn around and see him soaring like a goddamn eagle, spinning through the air almost like Sonic, just trying to go for that front flip. I can still see it in my head. And it honestly, the teacher who was on guard that day and every day that we did that, they should have been fired, because this is ridiculous. It was almost comical, like when you watch a movie about prison and you see a prison guard facing the one direction and then like prisoners are like jumping over and like using pole vaults to get over the edge and whatnot. Like, this is honestly what that was like. These teachers must have been blind or high or drunk or just so out of their mind bored that they were just staring into nothingness on the other side of the playground. So this kid is in the air, incredibly high, even for a child, or even for an adult rather, incredibly high, goes for the front flip, overdoes it, and then when he comes down kind of on his wrist, because if you overdo the front flip, you're going to get way too much forward motion, and you're not going to end up coming down in your hands. And he essentially belly flops onto the ground, and this wasn't just, that nice rubber, soft ground that you see a lot now in playgrounds. No, this was jagged-ass wood chips, just awful. Just, if you were to go back to this playground, you would swear to God that the people who made that playground were intending, like, yeah, kids are going to cut the shit out of themselves on these. They're going to own themselves. These are like little spears that we're putting all around. And so this kid comes down, slams like a body slam, but he manages to get one of his wrists under him in time to kind of catch some of the fall, and immediately, as soon as it hits him, you can see his wrist just snap. His wrist breaks, just twists completely to the side. I can't even remember if there was bone showing or anything, but he just started screaming, just like a really, really sharp, high-pitched like yelp. Just immediately. And immediately a ton of kids ran over and did what all kids do in that situation. They all covered his mouth and they were like, shh, be quiet, we're going to get in trouble, be quiet, be quiet. And so this 6-year-old kid is sitting there with protrusions from his arms from the wood chips just digging in there. Like, it honestly looked like he just got hit with a shrapnel grenade filled with wood chips all through his arms and his legs. Just tons of those little things, little cuts all over the place. On his face he's got cuts, and his wrist is just clearly broken, and everyone is just holding him, telling him to be quiet. And of course he wants to be the cool kid, and so he's sitting there like, okay, I'm not going to do anything. So he sits there and is like, doing that ooh, kind of like little kid pain, mind over matter kind of thing. He sits there. We just kind of put him over and prop him up next to one of the playground little pillars that holds it up. And the next kid gets up there, undeterred from what he has just witnessed, and he is convinced that he can outdo that front flip that he did. Because even though he didn't land the front flip, I mean, come on, man, we were in 5th and 6th grade. It was still pretty goddamn impressive. And so this next kid, Jared, gets up there, and he wants to outdo David, even though David is sitting there on the ground with a broken wrist, holding back tears. And every one of us is still watching like, holy shit, I can't believe he's going to go right after this kid broke his goddamn wrist on the same stunt. And so Jared gets up there, and it looks like he's going to try a front flip too. But at the last second, he turns around, and he goes for a full-on back flip. And this 6th grade kid gets even higher than David did, goes for the full backflip. We're watching it, and unlike David's trick, where you thought that he might land it, and there was like a moment of majesty where he was floating through the air like an Olympian, as soon as Jared took off, you could just see, oh no, this isn't going to work. He didn't tuck correctly, and so his body was still long ways, and magically he managed to get around almost the whole way, and then he landed way too straight onto his leg, and immediately he broke his leg. And so suddenly this kid's yelling out, immediately kids run and do the same thing, covering his mouth, saying, shh, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, we don't want to get in trouble, until eventually one girl was like, what the hell, guys, we got to stop this. Two kids just back to back broke bones doing a dumbass stunt off of a fucking 7-foot monkey bars, and the teacher hasn't even seen. We got to get these kids some help. And so thankfully she ran over, got some attention from the teacher, and the teacher ran over and was like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? And we all just bullshit and we're like, oh, they did it at the same time. They both got hurt at the same time. Not our fault. We didn't have anything to do. And all the kids scatter. And then those kids, in addition to getting broken bones, they were punished by having, I think, a suspension from recess for like a month or something, which doesn't make sense because the one kid who had a broken leg and a broken wrist, like, what are they going to do at recess anyway? They're flipping, days are over. What the hell? So that was the story of the two biggest dumbasses in 6th grade that I ever witnessed firsthand, breaking bones back to back by trying to do ridiculous, jackass-style stunts off of a 7-foot-high monkey bars apparatus. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please leave a rating, and if not, yell at me angrily and tell me how much I suck and should get off YouTube. So I've been working in my life to resolve a certain problem with my apartment for a while. The problem being the incredible amount of stains and messes and just shit all around my coffee table, on the carpet, and I can't really complain. The reason for this is that I have people over all the time, and of course I'm not going to ask people to take their shoes off if they're coming in my apartment or something like that, because a lot of the time people tend to be drunk and they're going to have mud on their shoes, they're going to have something on their shoes, and come down, sit on my couch, rub their feet around without realizing it, and leave a bunch of messes. And I'm not bitching and moaning. That's the nature of the beast. If you're going to have people over, you have to be willing to deal with what they bring. So anywho, this huge conglomeration of messes around my coffee table had, it had paid the iron price. It had been there long enough, and it was time for me to take control of the situation again. And so I figured I have two options here. One, I could go to the store, maybe get on IKEA online and make sure that my apartment new look can be really feng shui and really Asian. I could add some of those paper barriers, and then I can have a justification for asking people to take off their shoes, because Asian people do that. I could make that stretch, but then I figured I don't want to live like an Asian person like that, like a Chinaman. I don't know what the correct PC term is. I know that's not it. So I figured, I'm just going to go get a rug and put it down over all the stains on the carpet, make it pretend like it doesn't exist, and then all the subsequent stains will go on this rug, which I'll just throw away at the end of the year anyway. So I figured that's a great plan, but what to do today, because I was just so busy that day. But you know what I figured? I knew that I had the resolve. I was resolute enough to go to Walmart and get one thing. Just get one thing. So I decided I was going to go to Walmart and get that one thing. And as you can anticipate, I failed miserably. My biggest error was when I walked in, I grabbed a cart, Shouldn't have grabbed a cart. What the hell was I thinking? If I didn't have a cart, I would have walked in there, grabbed the carpet, and then walked out, and after paying for it, obviously, and then just carried the carpet without a cart. That would have been my plan, because once I had the carpet in my hand, I wasn't going to walk back to the main area and grab a cart and put that in there, then push it back to where I was. That would make me look silly, so I would just go and get it, and not even to mention the fact that I'd be too lazy to go and get a cart after I'd grabbed the thing that I was trying to get. So got a cart, big mistake, and I get the carpet after picking it out for 5-6 minutes, and I look to the left, and I notice a bunch of candles, and who doesn't like candles? I have a lavender candle burning right now, and because you just heard me say that, you know that I slipped up a little bit, so sue me. So, bought some candles. Then I looked over again, and I saw a nice set of comforters. I needed some blankets anyway. What the hell? It'd be foolish of me not to get it. And then it was pretty much a blackout. I don't really remember anything after that. It was kind of like I was the guy from Memento, and I woke up about 8 minutes later in the frozen food section holding a bag of boneless chicken wings, and I was like, what the hell happened? My cart's full of beer and food and everything that I didn't want to get here. And so that was a big mistake, but that doesn't really matter. That's just what I got at the store. So I failed that mission desperately. Or not desperately, horribly, and so I walked to the front of the store, and it is packed, and it was like a ridiculous level of packed. Usually, a packed Walmart equates to 3 of the 50 registers being open, and then one semi-literate person running one of them, and then 2 inept retards running the other, and there's like 50 people in each line. But this time, almost every single register was open, and there were at least 3 people in every line, like 3 big things of food, 3 huge carts. And I was like, shit, this is going to take forever, and I shouldn't have gotten all this stuff. I'm going to be late. And so Out of nowhere, I'm about to get in one of the big lines. I look and I see this line that has one lady in it. And it was only one woman. I was like, holy shit, she doesn't even have anything in her cart. She just has like 10 items left on the conveyor belt that just had to be scanned and put in the bag. So I was like, oh my God, I got to get over there. This is going to be good. So I push over there. I'm pretty much like Walmart jogging, like trying to do that kind of sneaky maneuver where I'm running over there. And if someone makes eye contact with me who's also looking for an aisle and they see me going for that aisle, they're going to cut me off and get there first. So I just have to like look like, oh yeah, look at the on sale juice. And then got in real quick. So I got in there and that was good. And because I got such a victorious, awesome surge of success, I was like, yes, I'm better than everyone. I got this spice, and you didn't. And I just stood there and messed with my phone for a little bit, because I felt secure. I felt that I had the situation under control, and then I would be out of there in a few minutes after this lady finished up and after I got all my stuff up there. Lo and behold, that was not the way things panned out, and if they did pan out that way, I wouldn't have told this story. So I'm sitting there in line, and 5 minutes go by, and I really didn't know what was going on. I looked up at the conveyor belt thing, and only 2 or 3 items had been taken off since I got there. So not even an item a minute, and this was going really slow. So I was looking up from my phone intermittently, being like, all right, this is pretty strange. I don't know what's going on. I guess this lady who's running the cash register, who's a pretty old lady, I guess she just is going really slow. I have no idea what the situation is. So I waited. 5 minutes turns into 10 minutes. 10 minutes turns into 15 minutes. At this point, there's still 3 or 4 items left, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. People with huge carts full of things next to me have gotten through, and then the person behind them have gotten through, and I am still waiting on this same lady, and it's been 15 minutes now. 15 minutes for 10 items to get across this thing, and I am still waiting. And at this point, people behind me are waiting and irritated. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is ridiculous. And so being the investigative journalist I am, not really, I walked forward under the auspices of looking at some of that gum that you can get by the magazines at the end, and I saw from the vantage point there that it was not actually this cashier woman's fault. This lady who was buying all these things had a huge Ziploc bag stuffed to the brim with coupons, like stuffed to the brim. It was not organized at all. It was just fistfuls of coupons jammed into this thing. And this lady was in her purse, messing around with them, like just pulling out huge wads, trying to search for the right ones, making this poor old woman search through them with her for these items. And at that point, I was like, holy shit, all of us in this line, me especially since I've been here the longest, we just waited like 15 minutes, and this lady is just pulling out coupons, just random ass coupons, taking up everyone's time doing this. Like, and it just immediately, it sparks in my head, like how profoundly full of neglect for someone else's time do you have to be to use coupons like that? Like, how can you get into a line and say, on this busy day, I am going to stand here and make a process that would take a normal human being 10 minutes, and I am going to make that take 40 minutes. Like, that is obscene. That is absolutely ridiculous. Like, and that's just like saying everyone behind you, it's like saying, oh yeah, I know you all have places to go, but guess what? The importance of me saving 3 cents on this popcorn bag is worth making you wait. Like, it's just profoundly selfish. Like, at least have the decency to organize this, or to maybe shop in accordance with your coupons. This lady may as well have just grabbed a bunch of random ass stuff, thrown it in the cart, and then taken her big bag of coupons, and she was just hoping for the best. Like, maybe I got something in here. Like, Jesus Christ, like going for the shotgun approach, and it was just so irritating. So I back up and I wait about 5 more minutes, and I'm not saying anything. The people behind me aren't saying anything. I can hear a couple of them murmuring, but I was there alone, so I didn't really have anyone to murmur to. And so, not intentionally, I realize this is a rude thing to do, but I let out kind of an exasperated sigh, just kind of a like just something like that, And this woman, when I did that, obviously that wasn't the most polite thing, but I don't even regret it. Screw her. I let out this exasperated sigh, and this woman, who had been, just making small talk and discussing the coupon situation with this cashier and not really looking at anything else the whole time, turns to me with cold, dead, soulless eyes and just says, "Calm down. I'm almost done." Calm down. I'm almost done. Calm down. I'm almost done, she tells me. She tells me, calm down. I'm almost done. Now, in this instance, I knew I had to do one or two things. I could either say something, or I could shut up. And if you know anything about me, I'm going to say something. But I am very proud of this part of the story. I did not get really rude or anything. I probably did, I'm probably having confirmation bias here. But I really tried not to be rude. And so I just looked at the lady, and I summoned every just little semblance of self-control, and every little bit of me that wanted to leap across the room and kick her in the tits just told me, no, Taylor, you don't want to do that. You don't want to go back to jail. Not again, man, not again. And so I look at her, And I'm like, ma'am, don't tell me to calm down. I'm not your child. And this woman was probably 35 years old about there. And then she looks back at me and says, oh yeah, well, I would be done with this by now, but you've been staring at me this whole time, and it's making me uncomfortable. You've been staring at me this whole... What? What? And it was at this point that I realized that this lady knew 100% the idiocy of her stance and was just frantically trying to make it seem like she wasn't the complete 100% bitch in this situation. And she tells me that I'm making her feel uncomfortable. Like, aside from the fact that, like, yeah, if I was just beady-eyed staring at her, that would have been uncomfortable, but I wasn't beady-eyed staring at her. I was just standing there looking around. What the hell else am I supposed to look at? I'm in line. Why, of all the things for me to focus on when I'm in line, why would I not focus on the one thing that the future of my immediate life is contingent upon? Why would I not look at what needs to pass before I can move on to get my life on its way? You know, why would I not look at that series of events? You know, it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I just said back, I didn't say ma'am. I was about to say ma'am, make it seem like I was more polite, but I didn't. I said, we have been waiting and gesturing to the people behind me for 20 minutes for you to finish this. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. And then the lady, the cashier, steps in because I thought this was just succeeding in helping me get a little bit of, a little bit of revenge. But I thought it was going to end up just culminating and just making it seem like, oh yeah, well you shut up, I'm going to keep couponing. But what happened is the lady behind the counter goes, ma'am, he's right. This is taking way too long. We're going to have to check out right here. No more coupons because all of her items have been checked out. She was just couponing them. And she was like, oh, that's ridiculous. You have to take my coupons. You have to take them. That's a rule. You have to take them. And the lady, I'm like 90% sure that this old lady just made up a policy, but she was like, I'm sorry, man, when it's this big a crowd, our policy is blah, 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 coupon bullshit. And so she had to leave after she paid right then, and it was just a victorious moment for me, despite the fact that I lost like 25 minutes of my life. But it was a victory, and I emerged with more wisdom than I went into it having. So, it's a good thing. Love you. So, first day of kindergarten, I walk in, I have a badass fish lunchbox where you unzip the mouth and the food is in the mouth of the fish. Very impressive. The ladies loved it. Immediately got some recognition from that and a bit of street cred to start me off school. Went into it thinking that it would just kind of be like a play date, because I had not a play date. Jesus, play date? Who am I? Who am I? Why would I say that? I went into it thinking it was just going to be kind of like hanging out at a friend's house, just doing whatever. Really, the whole entire aspect of like learning to read and like learning how to do things from like about academics really didn't hit me until I showed up in kindergarten, and so then I had to start doing all the reading and that. But I want to focus on the first day. Now, the first day, I went to a little private school, and I thought I was being hardcore and hilarious because I was making hella's penis jokes, and I was saying the word penis, and penis was like super off limits. Like saying penis was like saying cunt anywhere but England or Australia, that's what it was like, and it's just a bad word there. You don't say penis. You don't say penis or butt or ass, any of those things. Very inappropriate. And so I said that, and then a little girl who turned out she had autism later, told that story before, she tattled on me, and I had a talking to about, 45 minutes before the end of the first day of school ever about not saying words from my private places in front of girls. That was good. I continued to do so, though, at recess, and would berate the girls saying they couldn't make me stop. That's like borderline like kindergarten harassment. Didn't think about it till now, but just like saying things that I could tell made them uncomfortable just because it made my little boy mind just laugh. Man, that's... God. I knew there would be some stones to uncover as I went on this journey before I started the video, but none that large. Moving on to first grade, we did this thing called like the Festival of Learning, and this will be a big part of these stories because this Festival of Learning bullshit was essentially you had to go and study one topic really hard and make a big presentation, and then there was a huge evening where every single parent who had a kid at the school and like all their extended family would like come and look at all these projects on poster boards, and it was like a school that goes kindergarten to 6th grade, and so none of these were interesting and none of them were good, but we had to do it regardless. And so actually this was 2nd grade. Now, 2nd grade, our project was we had to write a short story, and so my short story, believe it or not, we had like 4 months to get this shit done. Like 4 months, like it's like looking at an 8-year-old kid, the 8-year-old version of me, and saying, now Taylor, in 4 months, you have to have a short story written that's 10 pages written like length, and like if it's a written length page, and my handwriting was so shitty at that age, it was like one typed out page of like text, but just with a bunch of pictures and whatnot. And of course, as is procedure when you're that age, I didn't even start it until like the night before, like when I realized it was due, and I was just doing it, and I made it about, and I still remember this, I still remember it very distinctly, it was about about an octopus that got loose in New York City, and it found its way into a convenience store where it ate a bag of chips, and the chips caused a chemical reaction that made it huge, and then it attacked the city. And looking back on it, that's fundamentally and functionally retarded on so many levels, but I know exactly why I did it, like looking back into my little kid mind. Now at the time we had a dog, and I had tried to give my dog chocolate before because I'm a kid and I'm like, chocolate's hell is good, and I like my dog, and I want my dog to experience how good this is with me. So I'm trying to give my dog chocolate, and my mom and my dad would tell me, no, Taylor, you can't give the dog chocolate because that's poison to the dog and it'll kill it. And for some reason in my mind, that meant human food does wizardly magical things to animals. That's why you can't feed animals human food. They'll just start growing like crazy, or they'll just turn into a monster, start breathing fire. And it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what the hell went through my head. There was no, continuum of logic where it was like, oh, chocolate makes dogs sick, therefore potato chip oil makes lobsters huge, or whatever the hell. And so didn't get a good grade on that. She said that it didn't, make sense. I'm just kidding. She didn't care. It was one of those projects where I was like, oh, good, Taylor, you did it, And you're probably wondering now, like, you always, like, I'm a pretty good student as I got older, but back then I was shit, just a shit student. On to fourth grade, this festival of learning. What did I do for fourth grade? Oh, fourth grade, we had to pick someone from Missouri, the state that I am from, and study them. And I chose Walt Disney. And the reason I chose Walt Disney is because we had to have a big setup and a big presentation. And I figured that I could get past my whole presentation area and just bring in a TV and put on VHS tapes. And literally, that is what I did. I brought in a boob tube piece of shit portable TV, because this was like, I don't know, how old are you in fourth grade? 10? This was like 11 years ago, a shitty-ass TV, and I bring it in, and I just set it on my desk and just point it outward, and I just had, like, Lady and the Tramp and Little Mermaid and Toy Story, and I was just jamming those in there over and over and just playing them throughout the night, and I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to answer anything about Walt Disney. People would walk by, see the movie, see me looking at the movie and watching it, completely neglecting to answer any of the questions I was supposed to do, and they would just walk away, and so I got a decent grade on that one, too. That was fantastic. Really set me up for college, knowing how to, put VHSs in on a presentation. Oh, this one was pretty gross, and you probably should not, if you ever go to an event like this festival of learning, you should not definitely eat any food that is provided to you by the children. They're going to say that it's from, like, whatever country they're studying or that BS, but it's really just dirty, nasty food that's been handled by children. And I know that because I did a study, or not a study, that sounds really like I was putting effort into it. In fifth grade for that project, I did a study on England, because we had to pick a country and go with that, and it had to be some country that, like, you had ancestors from, and so because I'm white, I was just like, fuck it, England. Going with England, England for $100, please. Yes, I'll take England. So I went with that, and the thing about England is they enjoy teas. And so what I did is I thought that part of my, like, tactile aspect of my presentation, when, like, all these parents were walking by, is I could, like, have little Dixie cups and pour them hot tea, and they could drink it, But what I did is I got way too eager to make the tea, so I brewed it, like, it was like a full, like, 26 hours, like a full day before. Like, more than a day before this event, I brewed the tea and got really excited about it. And then the event came, and there was this old stale tea sitting in a pot. And so I was like, shit. And so I got to school, went to the school kitchen, microwaved, like, the container, or poured it into a few glasses and microwaved it, then poured it all back in. So I was serving these people just rancid old nasty tea, and I knew it was bad, but I was little, I didn't give a shit. So I would watch these parents, like, trying to patronize me, and I'd be like, I'm studying England because I'm white, and they'd be like, oh, that's so wonderful, you're learning and just developing the world around you, and experiencing new things. Let me try that tea, just trying to help kids develop a passion for learning. And then the guy, like, will sip the tea and be like, oh, fantastic tea. I don't know why he talks like that. He didn't actually, or I'm not even thinking of a specific person. So there, the whole lie comes out there. But no, I did do that, and to make it even worse, I didn't bring extra tea bags, and I didn't know how to get water to boil. Like, I didn't want to go back. I wasn't out to put water on the stove in the kitchen, like, by myself at this school. I was a child. Like, to me, like, boiling water, that's like some incredible chemistry experiment at that point. Like, I hadn't, come to that point in comfortability, and so didn't do that. I ended up just getting the water out of the faucet in the boys' bathroom as hot as it could, and just ran it over those day-old tea bags, and then gave them tepid, nasty, even worse bathroom water tea, and I made those bastards sip it, and they sipped it, and they drank it, and they hated it, but they told me they liked it, and that's the benefit of being a kid. And as a man, you lose that benefit when you become a man. When you're a little boy, people will patronize you and tell you that bad things you do are good, even if they're not. But once you become an adult man, nobody does that anymore. But you still can keep that benefit if you're like an attractive girl. Like you can tell a dumb story, and people will still be like, "Oh hell yeah, that was really good. I've enjoyed that." Whereas if I told that story, they'd be like, "Taylor, go hang yourself. That was really unentertaining. I don't like you." Anymore. But gather round, children. It's time for an internet tale. I'm going to spin you a yarn of magic and wonder. Actually, no, it's about a birthday that I attended, as is tradition in the nation that I am from, for one to attend their own birthday party. So I was 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that ballpark. I was very young. And so my birthday came around, and I was obsessed. And when I say obsessed, it can't quite encapsulate the extent to which I loved these things with dinosaurs and with monkeys. I love dinosaurs and I loved monkeys. I would play with my dinosaur toys all the time, knew all the different names for them, and had huge, just epic battles with my dinosaurs. And then I had a ton of monkey toys, and also I would watch like the Jungle Book and every movie that had a monkey in it, even if it was animated, just because I loved it. I love monkeys. They were awesome. And so lo and behold, my birthday rolls around, and my parents, being intelligent individuals, realized that dinosaurs are in fact extinct, and so they couldn't call somewhere to bring dinosaurs to entertain me. So instead, they took the secondary option and called to have this team of one man and one woman come out and bring a male and a female chimpanzee. And this was not a full-size chimpanzee. These were like kid chimpanzees, so they weren't like huge behemoths. But, rest assured that this was a huge creature like compared to me, a little kid. And it's obviously way stronger than me because it's a goddamn monkey, and those things have crazy monkey strength. And so I'm excited about it. I had no idea that it was going to happen. And so on that day of my birthday, I had gotten my presents, the best of which was a Kawasaki little four-wheeler thing that, of course, you guys know those little Hummer car things that you can get in as a little kid and then drive around. It was like one of those, but smaller, like an ATV. Is that right? All-terrain vehicle, yeah, an ATV, a little one of those four things, and I could drive around. Obviously not real all-terrain, the little plastic wheels going really slow, but I loved it. It was exactly what I wanted, a car that went on its own, and I was psyched. I was so psyched. And so I'm standing by the front door with my Kawasaki, Suzuki, whatever the hell that thing was, beside me, because I saw this van with monkeys in it pull up, all right? And my parents are telling me what's going on, and I'm a little kid, and if I could ever say in my life that I shit myself literally in anticipation and excitement, it was probably that time. Now, I don't recall that many huge details, but I recall enough to piece the story together, and I was excited as shit. And seeing as how this is one of my first memories, I remember being crazy excited, and so these monkeys get out of the car, and they start walking up to the door, and I must have been like a dog who sees his owner coming back, like hitting the window, be like, oh my god, monkeys are here. Monkeys are here right now. Monkeys are here right now. And just getting so excited about it. And these monkeys come in, and it's a little male monkey and a little female monkey, and they're about the same size. And the male's name is Kirby, and the female's name is Kimmy. And the people walked in, and they started talking to my parents, and I'm looking at the monkeys, and the trainers kind of have their, not necessarily holding the monkeys back, but the monkeys understand that they're not supposed to run and play with me yet. And so then the trainers give them the go-ahead, and immediately the male monkey runs over, and Kirby starts like tickling me and playing with me, and I'm like on the ground, I'm like playing with this monkey, and I'm like, holy shit, this is all of my dreams coming true right now, and I'm only 4, I could die right now and be happy, playing with this monkey on the floor, and I'm just having a good time. I'm playing with the monkey. Tell me, try and frown when you're playing with the monkey, unless that monkey is eating your face or something like that, because that's not a funny part to play. And so I'm playing with this monkey, and then I get back up from that, having a good time, and of course I wanted to show the monkeys my Suzuki thing, because in my little kid head, I was like, yeah, I'm going to show these kids my new toy, because that's what I would do if a little human kid came over here. I'd show them my shit, and so I'm going to show my stuff to this guy. And so I bring my little Suzuki over there next to him, and I'm on it at this point, and I'm just kind of driving past the male monkey, who just kind of looks at it, and then like kind of loses interest and turns around, and then out of nowhere, the female monkey, who hadn't really been doing too much this whole time, books it over and like it's a movie, like jumps and like tackles me off the side of this thing, like Michael Bay Transformers style huge action. If there had been an explosion, it could have gone in a some awesome movie, Expendables. And so this monkey tackles me off, and I hit the ground, and I'm startled as shit, because a monkey just tackled me, and I haven't ever experienced anything like that. And I, start to well up and tear a little bit, because I'm like, Jesus, this monkey just tackled me. And so this monkey tackles me, and the trainer runs over and pulls it off of me, and it wasn't, clawing or anything, it was just playing really, really, really rough, like throwing me around and just like would grab my arm when I tried to stand up and just like pull me back down. And because it's a freaking monkey, that might as well be like Brock Lesnar grabbing, the me of today and being like, "Oh yeah, you want to walk away? No, you're not gonna walk away. You're gonna fall. You're gonna fall. I'm gonna knock you over." Like that's what it was like. This monkey just throwing me around like a rag doll. And then to add insult to injury, when I'm still laying on the ground, this monkey who hadn't been caught by his little captor yet jumps onto my Suzuki, and I don't know how it did it. I don't know how this little bitch did it, but she figured out how to work the goddamn Suzuki immediately and just took off. And obviously this was like no big chase to the capturers or my parents who could just walk over there and just like, grab the machine and stop it. But to me, that was like someone had just stolen my brand new ride, because I was like, "Oh shit, man, I ain't never gonna catch them. They're too fast." And so I didn't think like that as a child. That was, a little bit of improv. We do that here. And so I watched this monkey drive away, and I just start crying right now because I'm like, I'm just so emotional. Just imagine the emotional turmoil of a kid who is 1 second just in complete ecstasy playing with a monkey, and then the next second, the other monkey just, boom, blindsides him, hits him right off the side of the thing, and then steals his toy. And I just didn't know what to, I still have monkey trust issues. It's not something I speak lightly of, but everyone has their burdens, and that's mine to shoulder. And so then we went downstairs, and they let the monkeys eat cake, which to me as a little kid was just mind-blowing because I was like, holy shit, this monkey is eating people food. It's gonna die. There's no how can it do this? This is people food, because when you're a little kid, you see dog food, you think that is dog food. That is what dogs eat. It doesn't cross your mind that that's what humans give dogs to eat. And so when I see like human food, I didn't think you could give it to an animal. But lo and behold, I learned a lot of new things that day. Got tackled by a monkey, and I did get to keep my Kawasaki, and I got a cool picture with the monkeys. Once they settled down. But I still think that picture only had Kirby in it because that little bitch Kimmy, I hope she's dead. I'm pretty sure it's dead. Like, how long do chimpanzees live? Not that long. And this was, Jesus, like 17 years ago. Like, yeah, it's dead. I hope it's dead. Kirby was cool, though. Anyway, that's the end. I had a good birthday, except for the whole tackling of the apes. Love you. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So I figured I would tell you a mildly interesting, embarrassing tale that happened to me my freshman year of college, and it begins with, just like every time you're a freshman, the feeling if you've gone through freshman year of high school, where you're walking around and you gotta find where all your classes are, and it's a way bigger campus than you're used to, and for a while it's just a bit overwhelming. Now, that's kind of what it's like in college, especially if you go to a large university like I do, where it's just difficult to maneuver around. It's so large, and I am already the worst person I know, bar none, with directions. I have to use GPSs to get everywhere, even if I've been there before. I am terrible. I get in the car and I just go into panic mode. I just don't have good sense of direction. I just don't, I get lost all the time. I bet I waste $20 on gas every month on my little lost endeavors, and I still never learn. But anywho, so that can kind of show you how much this seems insurmountable to me, to be able to walk around campus and find all these buildings and then go inside the buildings and find the different subsections of them with the classroom. And you may think, well, they're just buildings, how hard can it be? Well, there's a lot of them look the same, and when you get into these buildings, some of them are so old and have been renovated so many times, it's like a labyrinth in there. Just like, you'll walk through a hallway and you'll be like, this hallway is like, am I walking into like an Alice in Wonderland playhouse? Is it getting smaller in here? Like, it's weird. But, maybe that's just a couple buildings on my campus that need to be updated. Either way, forging ahead. So it's freshman year. It's one of the first weeks. So I had my schedule down. I thought that I knew where I was going, and I had been carrying my schedule with me with all the classes numbers and everything in my backpack. And I would usually do my best to not use it as I was getting to class because I didn't want to be that little faggy-looking freshman who was like, I'm going to look at my schedule because I'm retarded, and then have to walk around campus that way. Because obviously, I had a rep to maintain as a freshman in college. So I'm walking around, and I am 100% sure, or I guess not 100% sure in retrospect, but I walk into this building, and I am so sure that I'm going into the right one. And it's in that little rush right before class begins where everybody's kind of bustling and hustling to their seats and everything. And I walk up to the back because it's a really old auditorium, and the seats are incredibly close together, and the front was already pretty much full, and I had to go to the back, and I had to worm my way through a bunch of people to get to the middle of this aisle. And this is not some trifling worming your way through. This isn't like a theater where you have a little bit of room. This is like you're walking a tightrope by a bunch of people's knees and stepping over backpacks and shit, and it's just really, really difficult. And of course, like a bunch of assholes, they all fill up the sides of both of the rows, but there's like 3 random seats in the middle of it. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just walk through and sit in one of those middle seats. And so I start walking through, and
as I'm walking through, I step on a backpack, one of those little backpack straps that you put on your back, and it slipped out from under me, and I almost tripped. And I was like, oh my God, and I kind of did a little quick glance around, and I'm like, oh, I don't think anybody saw me, I'll just, play that off. And as I was walking after that, I just got distracted in my head, just thinking, oh my God, how embarrassing would that be if I tripped in the middle of this aisle and just, that would be so, and as I am thinking that, I misstepped somehow, and I just faceplant, just boom, just fell like right past like 4 people's knees, just right in the middle of this aisle. And at that point, I'm positive like everybody has seen someone just fell down in class when everybody's trying to get into their seats, and it was the most mortifying, awful feeling, having to be like, oh my God, I just tripped because I was so focused on what would happen if I tripped, and now I'm going to get to live it. Now I'm going to get to live this experience. And so what I did is I stood up, tried to play it off, looked down in shame as my face glowed like Alpha Centauri, and everybody like a couple snickers, but there's a little bit of empathy there. I was expecting people, it would be like a high school or middle school classroom where people would be like, "Meh," but it was more of like people looked at you and it was like, oh Jesus, can't imagine if that happened to me, I'd be so ashamed. But either way, what happened next was just the only victory part of it. I stood up and I was about to sit down in my chair, and then I realized, I was like, you know what, I've earned to skip this class. There's no way I'm going to sit in class and have people stare at me and know me as that guy who tripped. I got to get out of here before people remember what my face looks like, because I got to come back to this class every semester, and there's no way, or not every semester, every day, and I don't want to be that kid who tripped. Even if they don't point it out, they're still going to be like, oh, you see that guy right there in the hoodie? Yeah, he ate shit on like the 3rd day, something like that. And so I just got up and I left. Just left. And at that point, like, class was starting, and he was like telling everybody to sit down, and I just walked right out past him. And at that point, you're just so blinded by embarrassment rather, that you just got to get home. You just got to get home, and it felt like I ran a mile after it. Heart was beating so fast, just like, my God, I cannot believe you just tripped and just ate shit right in the middle of that class. But thankfully, due to my sneaky Assassin's Creed style movements, subsequently, I was able to deftly maneuver out of the class, and hopefully people didn't recognize me as the kid who just ate shit on like the 3rd day. So that's it, and I hope you enjoyed this story, and maybe you got a giggle, or a titter, or maybe even a laugh.
So, anyway, the first one is going back way into the year, I guess it would be like 2007, 2008-ish. It was just when Pokemon Blue and Pokemon Red came out, and it was during a time far different than that. No, I don't want to get into that. So anyway, suffice it to say that my mom used to go to this workout place almost every day, and because I was too young to stay home by myself, myself and my younger brother would go with her, and they had a little daycare place here. And this wasn't just a daycare where you would go and hang out. This was a daycare of battles and of strife and of anger and of sweat and toil, in the realm of Pokemon, that is, because all of the little boys who went there would all bring their Pokemon cards and their Pokemon Game Boy games, and we would bet cards like little blackjack players or little gamblers that we were, and we would bet cards on how well you could play the Pokemon game against each other. And what I used to do is every week there would be, a new kid here or there, because obviously it's working out, so a lot of the moms and dads would come in, work out once or twice, and then leave, because you get like the free membership or whatever, and like a few trial days. And so there would always be new kids filtering in and out, and somehow it was just like an unwritten rule of childhood. All of these kids knew to bring Pokemon cards and Pokemon games, even the girls. It was a huge thing. Now, what I would do is, at first when I would go there, I would always have my best cartridge, my Pokemon Blue cartridge, where I had all of my level 100 legendary Pokemon, and so then I would challenge people and then beat them, and then get their cards back. I don't think I ever lost in that regard, but we would always throw down cards beforehand, and then there would always be the kid who lost, and afterward he'd be like, no fair, I'm playing take-backs, and all the kids would be like, no, you can't play fucking take-backs, no take-backs, goddammit, and like, we'd all freak out about it, because it's rough on the streets, so to speak. So we would play this, and it got to the point that people started to know that I would beat them brutally and take their cards. And so one day, there was a new kid who strut in, and he had a fat binder of cards. That, so many of which just looked tantalizing and refreshing and awesome, and I just looked at them with envy in my eyes and jealousy in my heart, and I thought, oh, that holofoil, Team Rocket, Japanese Rhydon would look badass in my rare binder or whatever the hell I thought. And so I challenged this guy. And usually you talk shit, you know? You just talk that way to the other kid. You're like, oh yeah? Do you have a level 100 Dragonite? And they'd be like, yeah, but I don't have him here. But I have a level 100, Snorlax. And they'd be like, oh, well, that's weak, man. And just like, you talk shit. And so this kid came in and he was new. And I made a big scene about putting down a bunch of rare cards and playing the noob card. And I told him that my entire lineup was a Rattata and a Pidgey and like a Butterfree and like a Beedrill, just like really, really bad things, and a Charmander, and then I think maybe a Bulbasaur. I don't remember 100%, but it didn't sound that intimidating of a lineup, and so he was more than willing to throw down like 5 or 6 rare cards to my like 2 because he was so sure he was gonna win. And I was like, I don't know, man. I really don't know. I don't really want to play you. It seems like you have good Pokemon, and he was like, no, man. I'll go easy on you. I'll go easy on you. And so I was like, just come on, man. Like if I'm gonna play, at least put down some more rare cards. And so he ended up putting down like 10 holofoil rares, and I only had 2 down. And so we start up our battle as soon as we can get that goddamn link cable to work, which if you ever had to deal with one of those, they never worked, ever. Ever. You always had to just toil and just work at that for a while. And as soon as we started battling, the kid just immediately started frowning and getting angry because what I had neglected to tell him is that my Pidgey, my Rattata, my Bulbasaur, my Charmander, my Beedrill, and my Butterfree, they were all level 100. And they all knew the best moves imaginable. And so I did that. And I completely hustled this kid out of 10 super badass cards, one of which was like the original holofoil Charizard. And the other ones weren't as cool, but they were still holofoil rares, and that, as a kid, that's like winning crack. Or I guess not like winning crack, because if I won crack right now, I wouldn't really know what to do with it. I don't think I'd go do the crack, that's just one of those things you don't do. Stay in school, kids. But anyway, that went on a few times, so every time someone new showed up, I would play the dumb card, then I would throw out my lineup of newbie 100 level Pokemon and then take their cards and get a lot of awesome stuff that way. So if you are a 7 or 8 year old listening and you are in a similar situation in a daycare at a gym, which is just a strange context for this whole story to take place, take advantage of that. Make sure that you are utilizing that strategy. And next story, it was a year later, I suppose. It was in kindergarten, and every year the kindergarten class at my grade school would go to this like pumpkin patch. This I don't even know if it was a celebration of Thanksgiving or maybe like a Halloween celebration. No, it definitely wasn't Halloween. It had to be Thanksgiving because there weren't any scarecrows or pumpkins or anything scary, which makes this story even more embarrassing for me. So I was about 7 years old, 8 years old maybe. And, or I guess that can't be right. If it was in kindergarten, it had to be before that. I got my timeline all mixed up. So I guess I was 5 or 6. Makes it a little bit less embarrassing. So I went to this kindergarten retreat, this little day event where we would go and just pick apples and do whatever the hell kindergartners do. Probably just like shoot snot on each other and pee in the bushes, or I don't even know. Well, I don't know what kindergartners do. I'm not good with kids. So we went there. And there was this certain place, there was a certain little area where you could go into this giant hay bale maze. And calling it a hay bale maze is almost understating how impressive this thing was. Imagine it like a labyrinth. It was a huge maze of hay bales that the kids would go through, usually led by a guide, and the guide would lead them through and take them, and then at the end they would pop out, and it was a good deal of an escapade. It took like 15-20 minutes to get through this thing, even with an adult leading you. And the scary part about it for me was that this wasn't like a corn maze where the sun was shining down on you. It had a roof, and the roof was made of hay bales as well. So once you walked in there, the only light source you had was a little lantern coming from your guide's hands. And this was the days before every kid had a cell phone, so it was honestly the only light you had. Even though I had my Game Boy on me at the time, it didn't even have a backlight, so I was shit out of luck if I lost that guide. And lo and behold, I was one of the last people to go in, and I was jacking off in the corner somewhere, and then I ended up losing the guide. And so for the next like 40 minutes or so, I wander around this huge labyrinth, screaming, trying to get someone to hear me, but of course nobody can hear me because I'm screaming into a goddamn wall of hay bales, and even when I reach up and try and push up, the hay bales are like too high for me to get a good push, and even if I could get a good push, my little 5-year-old arms aren't going to be strong enough to push a giant hay bale over my head and like leap to the top like a goddamn champion, like Jason out of the labyrinth after defeating the Minotaur. Man, that was nerdy. So, anyway, suffice it to say that after about, I don't want to be exaggerating too much, probably 30, 40 minutes of being in there after the guides came back in and were searching for me, and how pathetic on their part. How can you not find a freaking kid in a maze that you're supposed to be trained in when he's yelling on the inside? So I hope they got fired for that, so screw them. But anyway, ended up with me getting pulled out of the maze, just weeping uncontrollably because I was so freaking scared, because it is scary if you're like a 5 or 6 year old kid getting trapped by yourself in a maze in the complete dark, screaming, trying to open on the sides, and nobody's there, and you're all alone, and you're panicking, and you're having a heart attack, and your heart starts palpitating, and your breath gets really heavy, and you start breathing in and out really fast, hyperventilating, and your eyes start just flickering, and you feel like you're going to pass out because your head is pulsating, almost as though there's some heavy hands pushing on each side, forcing you into deeper, whoa! But anyway, that was the end of that story. It was pretty horrifying as a 5 or 6 year old, but I'm pretty much over it now, as you can tell. But hello, internet users. This is your friend Taylor, and I'm going to tell you about my first threesome. So let's take a step back real quick and set up the scenery, because you got to have good scenery in a story, or people don't know what the hell you're talking about, you know what I'm saying? So let's try and set the stage. Now, usually you could just say, I was at my house, or I was at my apartment, or I was at someone else's house or apartment or a hotel room. But nay, sir, this was at a train station. Now, train station, you're probably wondering, was this back in the 1800s? Was Woody's gamertag involved? No, he wasn't, but I will tell you right now that it did involve a train station, a lead pipe, and Miss Scarlet. So, no, I'm just fucking with you. So, anywho, I was in this train station, and where it happened in the train station is even stranger. Now, the way it was set up is an old-timey train station. Out front, there were the tracks and everything, but once you got inside, it looked a lot more professional and a lot less. It was like they kept the outside looking old and shitty, so that you would be like, wow, trains, and then get inside, and it's like, what was the point of keeping the outside shitty if you're going to change the entire inside and all the formats in there? Whatever. But anyway, there was a room off to the side when you walked in, and my parents were there, and they were meeting up with a friend of theirs who also had children my age. And so they were all meeting up there. Just a weird, group of people meeting here. I don't know why the hell we were at a train station, but we were. And so I go in and I see my mom's friend and these two other people, and it's this dude and his girlfriend, okay? And so I go up to this dude and we start talking and catching up. We were old friends, and his girlfriend starts talking to me, all right? And she's giving me the nasty eye, She's giving me this look up and down like, oh yeah, I'm attracted to you. She was with her boyfriend, so I was like, I don't really understand how to take this. And so we start flirting it up. We were all talking, all three of us, and then out of nowhere, they asked me to come check out this other room, right? So we're in this train station walking around looking at all the train stuff because, we all like trains. Who doesn't like trains? And we go into this other room where there's nobody in there. Don't even know what the purpose was. There's a huge table in the middle of it. And I said I had to go to the bathroom because I was getting really uncomfortable. So I went to the bathroom. I told them I'd come back there and meet them there, okay? So I go over to the bathroom, do my biz. Didn't even have to go. Just didn't want to be around. It was kind of awkward. Then walked back a couple minutes later, and they were both in the corner of the room. I had to kind of walk in and then turn to the left and see there's this huge table with a bunch of like old map-looking things laid out on top of it. And underneath the table, I could see that they were both under there making out, And this table, it's not like, don't picture them sitting under a freaking, coffee table or something. This was a big, big table, so it wasn't like they were just apparent. You actually had to look for them. And so I walk over there, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Trying to figure out what's going on, because I had no idea. And he starts telling me, he's like, oh yeah, we're just making out, It's pretty cool. We like it. Do you want to try? And he asked me, and I was like, what? What are you talking about? And then she was like, yeah, you got to try it. You got to try making out. Now, at this point in the story, it should be mentioned, that I am only 6 years old, okay? So I'm only 6 years old, and if that pisses you off and you think that the title was misleading because I strung you on this whole way, then screw you. I thought it was fucking funny. So I'm 6. That's why I have no idea what's going on. This dude is also 6, and his girlfriend's like 5, and they are making out hardcore. Like, this was my first experience seeing people making out, standing in this goddamn train station, looking under a dark table in this back room, while our parents caught up in the main room. And they were just going to town, and that girl really did ask me. She was like, do you want to kiss? And being like 5, 6 years old, I was like, no, like just straight up, no, no, thank you. And they kept pushing me, and it was weird. It was almost like it was like my first, physical potential for a physical experience with another, with a girl. I was only like I was a young kid, so I wouldn't have known even what the implications of that were. But it's funny that first time that ever happened in my life, I was the one being pressured. I was like, oh, I don't know, I don't really want to, get involved in that. And eventually, like I got under the table with them, and I sat there and I like watched them for like 30 seconds making out as sitting there as like a young kid, and then like 45 seconds, like a minute after watching that, I was just like, I'm just gonna go back out in the main train room. I'm just gonna go, you know what, guys, I'm glad we got to hang out, but I'm just gonna go hang out in the train room. So then I went back into the train room, got a $1.25 from my mom, got a sweet ass cheap root beer from this ganky, shitty vending machine, and then got free Twizzlers from the one next to it because someone forgot to get their shit out from the bottom. But that's the end of the story. First threesome, age of 6, get at me, I'm a pimp. But it doesn't really count because I didn't do anything, and I was a complete puss and didn't know what was going on. But that's the end, and if you guessed that this was all made up beforehand, then you're wrong, because I didn't make it up. But I was really 6. The end. Amen. So someone wrote a comment the other day on one of my videos because I mentioned that I had broken my nose before, and they asked me how I'd done it. And I realized upon being asked this question that I really don't have that much experience with breaking bones or seeing bones being broken, and half of my experience with that isn't even my bones. The only bone I've broken is my nose twice. The first time I was 7 years old, and my younger brother was 5, and if you line up a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, you're going to notice that the 5-year-old's forehead is very, very close to the 7-year-old's nose, and that is bad news for both of them. And so basically what happened is me, my brother, and probably like 4 or 5 of our friends, we were having like a little shindig at my house, and we were all running around playing tag in the basement, and my mom had already said, don't run around in the basement, don't run too fast, you're gonna get hurt. And as always, you pretty much did the standard, fuck you, mom, to like, that's what you do as a kid, that's normal, that's natural, don't feel averse to something like that, just let it swell up in you, let that childish sense of animosity towards your authority figures just, dwell there, that's healthy. So, Mom told me not to run in the basement, didn't give a shit, decided to run anyway, and so we played a huge game of tag. And to understand my basement at the time, you have to understand that it had a main area, and then it had an unfinished area. And the unfinished area had concrete, and we used to play hockey back there. It was a ton of fun, and you could walk in an entire circle around the basement. Now, there was a door on the left side and on the right side where you could go from the finished part to the unfinished part. So essentially, it was like, imagine a circle, half of it unfinished, half of it finished, kind of like that. And so we were playing tag around there. It made for an ideal place to play tag, so you could never get kind of hemmed back into a corner, and so you always have a way to escape, and you really had to work hard to try and tag someone. And so we were all having a great time playing, and lo and behold, about, I don't know, like 15 minutes into our game, probably only a few minutes before we were going to take a break anyway, go get our Capri Sun on, if you know what I'm saying, and I am running down one side of the unfinished area, and my brother was kind of hiding behind the heater, one of those big metal cylindrical heaters, just trying to bide his time, and neither of us were it, ironically enough, and he was just kind of playing the strategy of, waiting around, letting me and my friends wear out the guy who was the it person, and he was just kind of playing it sly, like guerrilla tag warfare, so to speak, and I ran right by him, and as for some unknown reason, the second that I started to sprint by, he decided to sprint out on his own, and of course, because he was behind this big cylindrical thing, he couldn't see me and I couldn't see him, and we just collided right there, just bam, right in the middle of my basement, and immediately my nose, if you've watched some of my vlogging videos, you probably can tell, but you may not be able to tell, I don't have a very high quality camera, but my nose is really, really angular, and that's not natural, obviously. I don't have a squared off bridge of my nose, from birth. It's because I had to get it shaved off right there, because when I broke my nose, I basically broke it in half at the very top, and so it kind of just crushed everything in my nose, and this was not a minor break. This was a big deal kind of thing, and it kind of cracked my nose. I mean, the only way I can explain it is it cracked it in half, pretty much. Horizontally, and immediately my nose just starts pouring blood. Now, words cannot properly describe how much blood there was. Like, imagine a movie amount of blood, and not even like a movie like, just like, oh my god, that's a Gladiator amount of blood spurting from his neck. Imagine like a comedy movie that's overdoing it on blood, and then multiply that by 3. Like, I was sitting there as a 7-year-old being like, holy shit, I did not know that there was this much red stuff in my body. I'm gonna die. I am going to die. And immediately my brother started freaking out, and he was like rubbing his forehead kind of, but he wasn't hurt, obviously. And then, obviously, all of my friends run around, and they see me standing there, just blood pouring out of my nose. And it didn't hurt. Well, it did hurt very, very badly, but I was in shock because it had just happened. I'd never broken a bone before. And between me and my mom upstairs, I had to run through the finished area, which meant that I was going to get blood all over the carpet. And, of course, it doesn't make any sense, but my first thought was, oh shit, my mom's going to be so mad when I run upstairs and I get blood all over everything. And so I did my best to run upstairs with my hands under my nose, which was not going to work. Like, you may as well grab yourself like a baseball cap and then run under a waterfall and try and catch all the water to keep it from landing in the pool below. That's not going to work. And that's basically what it was like. I was covered head to toe in blood. I'm sure some of my friends got blood on them because it was just spurting out of there. It was almost like it was not even a hose, but one of those hoses that has the little lever that you can press to kind of funnel it and channel it into a stronger stream. That's what it was like. Someone had a hose up there, pushing it down, putting their thumb over it, really getting a good spray. And so I'm running through the finished part of my basement. The whole time, my only thought in my head is, oh shit, I'm going to be in trouble, I'm going to be in trouble, I'm going to be in trouble, of course, because that's what kids do. And the whole way, just getting blood all over the place, ruined the carpet. And I get upstairs, and immediately my mom sees it, and she starts freaking out, and she gets me and all of my friends in the car. And at the time, my grandma was headed to my house to hang out with us and have dinner. And she lives about 3.5 hours away, so it's no trifling matter for her to drive up. And so, luckily, we were passing her. We were going through an intersection on the way to the hospital with my mom, myself, my brother, and then all of my friends in there. And so it was a packed car. And in the middle of an intersection, we passed my grandma. And so we pretty much just stopped right there at, I think, a green light. Hopefully it was a red light. It would have been a lot more inconsiderate. But, I had a broken nose and I was bleeding all over the car, so it wasn't my number one priority at the time. And they got out in the middle of the road and jumped over into my grandma's car. And my grandma took all them back while I went to the hospital. And it was just a big ordeal. And so that was the first time that I broke my nose. Now, the second time that I broke my nose was in 7th grade. And it was... I have to say this one was better. It didn't hurt because it pretty much just broke along the same crack that there was before, I think. Like, I don't really know. I'm no doctor, but it felt like it was the same kind of break. And of all the sports that I'd played, it was in middle school, and I played hockey. I played really competitive ice hockey. I was wrestling at the time. I was doing a lot of, aggressive sports where you expect to get hurt. I had played football that year and the year before. And of all the sports to get hurt in, I get hurt in basketball. And the reason it happened is because I was going up for a rebound, and this kid went up there in the middle of practice, mind you. This is a freaking practice with a bunch of 14, 13-year-old kids. And he jumps up there and grabs the ball. And instead of just bringing it back down, and no one was contending with him because it's freaking practice, who gives a shit? Seriously, dude? And he starts flailing his arms around like a maniac. Like all I can just, it was like he had just taken a fat hit of PCP, and then he thought the ball was somehow containing his soul, and he had to keep anyone else from touching it, otherwise he would go to hell or burn or something like that. You cannot describe the madness and the lunacy that was in this person's eyes when you looked at him. And he swung his arm once towards me, and I kind of dodged it, and then he kind of stutter stepped back towards me again and swung his arm even further out, and it cracked me right in the nose. And immediately, once again, the torrent poured forth from my nose, and they pretty much had to cancel the rest of practice on that side of the court just because there was so much blood. They had to have like 2 janitors come out and fix it. So good part of that story is I got the rest of the day of school off, so that was nice. We had practice during school, so I got to take off the last 3 hours. Bad news is I had a broken nose, so that kind of sucked. But anyway, those are my 2 only broken nose, broken bone stories. Hope you enjoyed them. So the other day, I was just chilling, minding my own business in my apartment. It was probably a Wednesday or Tuesday night, one of those nights where you really don't have much to do, just kind of diddling around on my computer, just finish my homework and whatnot. And I hear this incredibly loud crashing, just crunching, just bang noise right outside of my apartment. And by right outside, I mean like a stone's throw away. And by stone's throw, you should know that my throwing arm is absolutely pathetic. So that's like 10 to 15 feet. Also, depends on the size of the stone. It's always a very strange comparison to me. Like, if it's a big stone, there's no way in hell I could throw it. Like, I bet I can't throw a big stone like 8 feet, but if it's a little stone, I could probably get that stone's throw pretty damn far. I bet it could be like, yeah, it was just a stone's throw away, but it could be like, 50 yards or something. But well, for the sake of the explanation, let's assume this is a pretty mid-sized stone. We'll say like 10 kilograms or something pretty big. So I heaved that over there. What am I talking about? I don't even know. Didn't throw a stone, just to clarify. But I hear this loud noise, bang, crash, right outside my apartment, and it startled me because because it wasn't just a crash of something that I could hear. It was a crash that I could feel. I could feel like the whole floor of my apartment and the walls and everything just shake really suddenly, just bang, almost like something ran into the actual apartment complex. And I hear the noise really loudly, and I'm like, oh shit, what the hell just happened? I bet a car accident or something like that, maybe a plane crashed into the side of my apartment building, I don't know. So I walk out, and immediately I look down because I live on the second floor, and there's a little decline where you can get down into my parking lot, and it's kind of an awkward decline. It's way too thin to drive any kind of mid-sized car down it. Even my car barely fits on this little pathway. And I look out, and at first I don't see anything, but I walk to the edge of my porch, and I look down, and there is a car that has hit one of the supports underneath my porch, like one of the poles that holds up my porch. They had ran straight into it, just bang, just straight. I don't even understand how they did this, because it wasn't even as though they clipped it with the side of their car or something. It was like they straight on just saw it coming and were like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, bang, just ran right into it. And the shocking thing about it is I thought, oh shit, what if this person's hurt? You know, it was a really minor accident, obviously, but sometimes you can get those freak accident whiplashes where your just neck would really hurt. And so I look over, and I'm about to start walking down the stairs to go make sure the person's okay, and the person steps out of the car, and I immediately noticed that they are still on the phone. So obviously this person had been on the phone during the accident, right? They had been talking to someone, and the best part about it is they were like visibly freaking out. You could see that they were like having a panic attack, but on the phone, the girl who was talking on the phone, she's still having this conversation as though it's, you know, no big deal. Like, don't even want to interject that you just ran into a freaking apartment building. Don't even want to acknowledge that. So she steps out, and like the first words that I hear from her are like, oh yeah, that party was so much fun, and just laughing in one of those, you know, jovial kind of voices. And her face was at complete dissonance with her voice. Her voice sounded like she was right in the middle of a bar having a good time, but her face was just like freaking out. And you could tell she was just trying to keep her composure on this phone call. And I realized immediately, I was like, holy shit, how into a conversation on the phone do you have to be to run into an apartment building, step out, and not even bring it up in the conversation? Like, maybe she was talking to her parents or something, or like that, and she was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, I gotta keep my composure. I don't want to let them know that I just ran into a freaking apartment building almost, or if not, surely, then she was very probably drunk, because I can't even fathom a way that you could hit an apartment building like this. Like, it's not like it's moving. It's not like it's snuck up on you. Like, that's the same way I feel about people who die getting hit by a train, you know? There are some people who get hit by trains and by subways and whatnot who are pushed into the way, and that's obviously not their fault. But anytime I hear someone who died on a train track, I'm always like, what the hell? Like, how did it sneak up on you? Like, maybe if it was a silent train and you were blind and just have no conception of self-awareness or where you are, you could get hit by a train. But even then, what the hell are you doing over by a train track if you're blind and you're that helpless in a situation? Someone's irresponsible to let you go. But that's how I felt about that. It's just one of those situations where it's like, how the hell did you let this happen? Like, a train isn't going to sneak up on you. It's not going to be like, surprise, bam, like right in your face. Like, no, you have like 45 seconds at the very least to like look and be like, oh, that is a train. It's coming towards me. Yeah, it's still coming. Oh, it's really loud too. I can hear that. Oh shit, getting close. It's like a half mile away. Oh, 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 and then bang, you're dead. Like, it feels like you have to really almost orchestrate your death to get hit by a train, unless, of course, there's some sort of mustachioed villain tying you down, which, you know, in a way, that'd be a kind of a cool way to die, aside from the fact that I'm sure picking up your body parts afterward would be a gross endeavor for anyone willing or perhaps obligated to do so. Maybe they have a special body part cleanup group for that. I don't know if it's that big of a problem. But anyway, this girl just ran into my apartment. Bang! I looked down there, and the pole was actually dented, but it wasn't a big enough deal to tell anyone, honestly. And I didn't want to draw any more attention to this girl's blunder because she wasn't hurt. Her car was a little bit damaged. There was no damage to the apartment. I didn't want to bring any attention to it. But it was shocking to me to see someone who just made such a huge blunder that can't possibly be put off onto anyone else and not even bring it up in their phone call. And at the very least, it seems like if I hit something, I'd be like, oh shit, gotta go. Like, just hang up, like not explain anything. But she was just continuing her conversation, just talking about her day, you know, just doing her thing. But I don't know why that surprised me so much. It was just strange. But hope you guys enjoyed this story. Not really a moral or a point or really any reason whatsoever to tell it, other than the fact I thought it was interesting. But today is my birthday, and all that I want is a like and a favorite and $1,000 cash sent to me. So thank you. And I love you. So I just had one of those social encounters where you just really don't know what to do, and so you just kind of sit there and hope that it ends as soon as possible. And starting off, I walk into my academic advisor's building, not her office, just the building, and walk into the waiting room, talk to the secretary, and she tells me to wait. So I sit down, I'm waiting, and it was the first time I've been to this particular academic advisor. I've had a few in the past, but they've all quit. I really don't know why. And so every time I've had a new meeting with an advisor, strangely enough, I've always gone to a new advisor, which is not very good for me because it's complicated. So I get there, and this was the nicest building by far that I'd been to at the advisor. So it was looking good, an actual like office building as opposed to just cubicles and whatnot. So I'm sitting down, they call me up, and I go back with the lady who called me, just the regular advisor. She looked like a normal woman, probably about 5'2", really, really, really overweight, but she seemed like a nice lady. So I'm walking back with her, and as soon as she opens the door to her little office area, I walk in and I'm just dumbfounded. I'm just like, what the hell is going on in here? And there was just so much shit and just stuff and food and toys and games and music and electronics just piled everywhere. And this isn't like a woman that's my age. This is like a 35, 40-year-old woman with like pictures of her like kid and her husband on the desk, and she's got like shit everywhere. Like I didn't know what to do. Like she just walked in there without saying a word, took all the documents that I handed her, and then just sat there quietly. And as I'm looking around, I'm seeing like old bowls of cereal with like milk still in there. I saw like a half-eaten Cliff Bar sitting on a counter. There was a whole bin of goddamn Legos to the left of me. What am I supposed to do with that? Like usually at least someone who has Legos in their office is working with young children. Like what would you have done if like me as a 20-year-old male just fucking got down on my knees and started just playing, building a huge fort with Legos right in the middle? Like, would she have been okay with that? She must have been okay with it because there was a huge bin of goddamn Legos right in the middle of this office. What other explanation could there be? Like, clearly, either people are playing with Legos in there, or she has a lot of downtime and plays with Legos. And then also, she had like 3 Game Boys, of which none have batteries, but they were laying in a way that I couldn't see that, so I picked one of them up with trying to make sure that she couldn't notice. Didn't have batteries in it, and only one of them had a game in it, and that game was Tetris. Don't titillate me with thoughts that Pokemon Blue could potentially be in a Game Boy Color, you bitch! Why would you do that to me? That and Legos? Why? That's just rude. Why would you do that to a student, a male student? You just put a huge bucket of nostalgia right there and then expect me to focus on academics. And I can't even get past that because as soon as I look up at your face, I notice that you have a chocolate smear on your lip and there's a melted chocolate bar laying right there on your desk. But that wouldn't be that shocking because there's a half-eaten Toblerone on the other side of your desk. And it was just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Like her keyboard was actually dirty with food. It was disgusting. Like there was a half-open I don't even know what the proper term is. Like, is it a mason jar? Those, like, preserves things? She had a jar of preserves. Preserves. What, does she take a fucking time machine from the 1800s and bring a jar of peach preserves to have with a side of her Easy Mac and Toblerone? Jesus Christ. But suffice it to say, I didn't really pay attention, didn't learn what was going on, and kind of just sat there quietly wanting to take one of the Game Boys and the Legos for myself. But, that's not how it went. It's not how it went. Didn't get to play with anything. But, yeah, not really a moral to that story or anything. Just thought I'd let you know. Love you.
This story begins way back in the year 2011, on December 23rd, so actually it's probably like a week and a half ago. It wasn't that long ago. It was my younger brother's birthday, and he had just turned 19, and he decided that he wanted to have a bunch of people over to celebrate. And I agreed because I am all in favor of having a party to celebrate fun things. And it was his 19th birthday, and remember, we're in the United States here where the drinking age is 21 and the age where they can send you off to die in war is 18. So just keep those in line because that's clearly the way it should be. But anyway, so let's get on the story. My brother decided that he wants to throw a party. I'm a little bit reserved about it at this point. I'm always fine for having people over and throwing parties and whatnot, but on this particular night, we had to wake up very early the next morning to go to my grandma's house since the next day was Christmas Eve, and we always go early the next morning because my grandparents live pretty far away, and it takes a while. We like to get there by lunchtime. So I knew that we would have to wake up early, and I thought, hey, maybe we should hold off on this. We can just do it when we get back. I don't want to have to wake up really early and be hungover. And he said, no, we're still going to do it. And I said, fine, that's okay with me. I'll just have some friends over and not drink tonight. You don't have to drink to have fun. God, I can't even say that without sounding like PBS. Ugh, although it's true. So there you go. But
My brother decides to have a bunch of people over, and as with most of these style parties, it starts out small and then it ends up escalating out of anyone's control very quickly. And well, I guess that's unfair to say. To be fair, it was still under control. Myself and a couple of my friends had not been drinking, and so it really wasn't difficult to keep people under control and not make sure people were being too crazy. And about 1 a.m., when it was kind of, I guess the party had matured, people were starting to dip out because, of course, we said beforehand we have to wake up at 9, so we don't want to be up too late, and we certainly have to clean up tomorrow morning, so we don't want to be leaving a big mess for the few days that we're gone. And as I'm sitting on the couch downstairs, just chilling out, talking to a few friends, a buddy of mine who was getting a drink of water upstairs runs down the stairs and says, "Hey, the police are here. The police are here," and he's freaking out, and I'm like, "Oh shit," but immediately I remember, hey, this is the United States. People can't just break into my house. I have the Fourth Amendment. I'm just going to walk to the front door. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to explain that if they want to come into my home and search, they're going to need a warrant. They're going to need a warrant because I live in the United States, and that's how our justice system worked. And until this point in time, I had far too much faith, I suppose, in the justice system of my country, simply because I had never been victimized by it. And so I'm starting to walk up the stairs, and I guess what you should know on the layout of my house is that it's a ranch-style home, and so essentially what that means is when you walk in from street level, there's the one level, and then there's a big sprawling-sized basement. So everybody was in the basement. Nobody was upstairs aside from my mother and my youngest brother, who were both asleep and had no idea what was going on. And so I'm walking to the top of the stairs, and from the vantage point at the top of my stairs, I can look to the left and see my front door, and I can look to the right and see my back door. And as I get to the top of the stairs, I can see the police out the front door with their mag lights waving around, and I think, hey, I'll just walk over there, let them in, get this taken care of. So I get to the top of the stairs, and I'm about to start walking over to the front door, when suddenly just two booms happen, and two booms, oh, great wording, Taylor, but two loud noises occur, and the front door bursts open, the back door bursts open, two police officers run in the front, and one runs in the back, and I'm like in shock, like, holy shit, like, you can't just break into my house, you can't do that, this is 100% illegal, this is not okay. And I walk over, or I start the gesture to walk over, and immediately remember, don't walk towards police officers when they come into your house. I don't want to get hurt or something. So I kind of just stutter-stepped and then stood there for a second with my hands raised in the universal gesture of, hey, I am not a threat. I am just trying to talk with you. I am not going to hurt you. I have no weapons. I'm not armed. Just that universal gesture. You don't need a goddamn PhD in body language to figure this shit out. And as soon as I hold my hands up, I look down, and in addition to this mag light blinding my eyes, there's also a little red dot, a little red laser pointer looking dot bobbing around my chest. And at first, my first instinct was like going to like movie instincts and be like, oh my god, a sniper! But then I realized really quickly afterward, holy shit, this really isn't a joke. This guy is running at me with a taser pointed after he broke into my house without a warrant, without probable cause. So, and at this point in time, these three police officers, and in addition, there was one who broke into my house in the basement that I didn't know about until I got downstairs. They had come onto my property. The one who went into my backyard had trespassed onto my property without probable cause, and all of them had broken into my home. Just these four officers had broken into my house and then threatened me with a taser. And immediately in that moment, I was just like, holy shit, I can't believe this is happening. And well, I guess I'll expound on that more later. I'm just going to get through the whole story first, since I've done this commentary a few times and I've messed it up. You know what I'm saying? So after that, they yell at me. They say, get the fuck in the basement, as the taser's pointed at my back. So I'm walking down my own house basement, down the stairs, sober, with a laser pointer or I guess a taser pointed at my back. And these guys are all making a huge fuss, telling everybody in my basement to get the fuck down and sit down and yelling at them. Being absolutely ridiculous. Just after breaking into my home. And they get everybody organized and start sitting them down. And then they start playing all this bullshit and lying to us about how they thought someone stole something, or then they said they thought that we were doing drugs or something like that. You could clearly tell that these officers were desperately trying to think of an excuse that would rationalize why they had broken into my house. And at the time, I was talking to an officer saying, where do my Fourth Amendment rights come into this? Where do they come into this? How are you in my house right now? And the officer looked at me and said, your mother let us in the house, so your Fourth Amendment rights weren't violated. And I looked at him and I said, no, officer. No one opened the door. My mother and my youngest brother, the only people upstairs, are both asleep. You opened the doors and came into my home illegally. And then he said again, oh, well, in that case, you left the door open. So if you leave the door open, we can just walk in. And I said, no, officer, we didn't leave the door open. You saw me at the top of the stairs, and I saw you behind the door with it closed. And then he just looked at me and kind of smirked and said, oh, well, in that case, the doors were unlocked. And if they're unlocked, we can just walk in. And I am not lying to you. Verbatim, what this officer said to me was that if my doors are unlocked, they can just walk in. They can just walk in. And I said, that's illegal, officer. And I was trying to be as respectful as possible to this pompous dickbag. And he just looked at me and smirked and kind of smiled and laughed and walked away. And it was when he did that I realized that despite the fact that on paper I have these rights and that I actually know what to say to police officers legally to get them to leave me alone, it doesn't fucking matter. Not even a little. Because in the minds of these police officers, they're not the enforcers of the law. They are the arbiters of law. It's become so normal for them to violate and grossly misuse their power that they don't even recognize it as bad anymore. They didn't even think twice about breaking into my house. Not even a little bit. They just assumed, hey, these kids are probably drinking, so let's just, on suspicion, break into their house, threaten to tase them, and then start giving out tickets for drinking without giving people sobriety tests. And so basically what happened to me that night is that my house was broken into by criminals who are sanctioned and armed by the state. They threatened to tase myself and many of my friends in my own basement without a warrant after coming in, and then proceeded to give myself and many of my friends tickets without administering sobriety checks. And at this point, they were essentially threatening to tase us for anything. The main police officer, I shouldn't say all of them, one of them was being especially difficult, who was continually threatening and taking out his taser if people didn't listen to him. He was threatening to tase if people didn't confess to what he wanted. He was threatening to tase if people went to the bathroom. He was threatening to tase one person who was the drunkest person there, asked if he could please go to the bathroom multiple times. And this officer continued to sit there and say no, no, no. And eventually, when the kid said, officer, please, I'm going to urinate on the floor if you don't let me go to the bathroom, the officer still said no, at which point this guy got up, walked to the bathroom, only to be grabbed and thrown back by the police officer and then threatened to be tased, simply for wanting to not pee all over the floor. It was terrifying just because of the fact that I was raised in this United States little bubble where I was taught that these officers of the law were upholders of justice and people who were doing what was right and standing up and, taking a bullet for society despite the fact that they don't make that much money. They're just doing it for the greater good. And it was just kind of in that moment that entire fantasy fleeted from my mind. That entire ridiculous bullshit just flew out the window. And I realized that even when you know your rights, even when you know everything that there is to know, it doesn't matter. It simply doesn't matter. Because these officers don't give a shit. And that was what was so terrifying. The fact that they could come in, break the law so willy-nilly that they swore an oath to uphold, and then manipulate it just to get a bunch of kids a ticket that they don't even deserve. And so now I have a ticket for something that I couldn't possibly have been doing just because they broke into my house. And you better fucking believe that I'm taking these motherfuckers to court about it. And I would appreciate some stories. And of course, with any of these kind of stories, not all cops are bad. Let me just say that. But the way I see it, and I'm not sure if I've broken this down yet, but let's say that only 2 police officers in a precinct of 10 officers are corrupt. Let's say that only 2 of them consistently speed and use their lights to get through, or use their flashers or alarms or whatever the hell those things are to get through stoplights and things like that. They're just abusing their power, doing what they did to me, breaking into kids' homes without warrants, and then serving them tickets that they couldn't possibly because they refused to use breathalyzers despite the fact that I requested it. Things like that. And let's say that only 2 of those 10 officers are guilty of those things. Now, what do you think of those other 8 officers? Let's say that they're perfect if those 8 officers don't hold those 2 corrupt cops accountable. I think that those 8 officers are very responsible for keeping those other officers responsible for obeying the law. Otherwise, they're making a tacit admission that being a police officer exempts you from the law, in which case they're sociopaths, or at least exhibiting sociopathic traits. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. So even if you want to defend cops and say that as a whole they're good, I say that if a cop sees another cop acting in a way that is
disgraceful to the badge and that cop does not do anything to stop it, that cop is now almost as responsible. And you know that may not be pleasant, and I bet it would be awkward as shit for a cop to call another cop out on their bullshit. But I don't give a fuck about how awkward it is to call another cop out. That is your goddamn job. And I could tell that night that 3 of those officers, the ones who were being ridiculous, could have been stopped if just the one nice officer who was in the corner would have stood up and said something. Would have stood up and said, this isn't right, or said, this is illegal, what we're doing right now. But he didn't give a fuck, because he was going along with it. And just because he was going along with it, suddenly he's joined the bad cop bandwagon. And that's the way I feel about it. I suppose people are going to have their own opinions, and I guess no matter how many times I say it, some moron out there is going to think that the point of this video was to say that all cops are evil, and that they're not worth it at all. But anyway.
So honestly, I can't really say that I'm surprised about the conclusion of this whole police breaking into my house thing. From an optimistic perspective, I was always really holding on to that hope in the back of my mind that maybe somehow, by some miraculous happenstance, I may actually be able to fight back against these police officers and make a difference, so that these kind of people couldn't, use their authority so disingenuously in the future. But you know what? That's pretty much all it was. It was a niggling little hope in the back of my head, because of course that's not how the real world happens. That's not how things work out. Of course I got mad in the moment. Who wouldn't? I got pissed off. But that's not how life goes. That's not how the legal system works. So all of this to say, let me just say first and foremost that this whole situation with the police is not 100% swept under the rug yet. I'm still working through some of it, but for all intents and purposes, even though not everything has come to pass, I can pretty much see where the pieces are going to fall into place. So basically, let me just say that after that whole event transpired, after everything went down, I spent the next few days actually doing a lot of, intense research about it, trying to figure out at least, the laws that are pertaining to Missouri, since these laws are wildly disparate across the nation. So I looked it up in Missouri, tried to find out everything I could about these kind of tickets and the procedures that the police use to get them, and if there are any loopholes that I could use to get out of it, and whatnot. And I spoke to a couple of attorneys, and by no means was I delving into law books, spending hours at a library. So don't get that picture in your head. Don't picture me like that image of Gandalf sitting in that library from the first Lord of the Rings movie. God damn it, I hate it when I use comparisons that just tacitly admit how nerdy I am. But regardless, doesn't matter. So pretty much my conclusion to all this research was that these tickets, these MIP, minor in possession of alcohol charges, they really are a racket. They're a scam. It's really something that the government's just using to get money, and obviously that's not a surprise to anyone. But what I found out is that basically you really don't have an option with dealing with these kind of tickets. And of course you're going to say, but Taylor, you could plead not guilty and try and make it so you don't have to pay it and prove your innocence. And yes, you're right, I could do that. But the system itself, just because it offers that option, it doesn't mean that it's a free option, and that's just as preferable as pleading guilty, if that makes sense. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that the system in regard to these kinds of tickets, they punish you for trying to fight back. So they slam you in the face with a really expensive ticket, and then they make it so that if you want to fight back against this expensive ticket, then likely the cost to you is going to be many times over what the ticket was. So basically it's like saying, oh yeah, you want to stand up for your rights? That's fine. You can stand up for your rights all day. As a matter of fact, you can stand up to your rights to the police officer himself, except he's going to be getting paid overtime, and you're going to be draining your pocketbook and your checking account with the attorney that's, spitting words and throwing money all over the place, and it's not going to be fun. So basically that was the really just sad thing that I realized after trying to research it. I really tried to figure out, I looked up cases where kids had fought back and actually won and succeeded and whatnot, but those were few and far between, and honestly they were difficult to find any of them, since most people just go with the option of just paying the ticket and moving on with their life. And it's really shitty that that's how you're supposed to do it, because you have that ideal, that feeling, as soon as that happened to me, I just had that oomph in my just my soul. I don't really know why I use the word soul, but I felt it just in my being, just that I was pissed off and I wanted to, fight back against these assholes who abuse their power. But I guess I can say I'm not really that surprised that when it finally came down to it and push came to shove, that I'm pretty much just going to have to pay the ticket and accept the fines that are given to me, because I really don't have another option. It's really shitty when the legal system, because most of us are not really, involved in the legal system very often. We know the little buzzwords like innocent until proven guilty, but we're never really involved in the system. And so, for someone like me who hasn't really been convicted of any crimes, when I get pulled into, a shitstorm like this, I really kind of expected, from my naive, childlike perspective, that this would actually be the kind of legal system that I was raised to believe the U.S. had, where it was like, oh yes, I know you're a police officer, but you did something wrong, and so you have to pay just like everyone else. And I guess that's really naive on my part, and I should be the one who's kicking myself in the ass for not thinking about this. But it's just aggravating. It's aggravating to realize that this whole illusion of a justice system that I've been looking at my whole life, only to finally get there and step into it, and realize that it's completely farcical, and that it's basically, just a way to circumvent my ability to defend myself by placing such a high price on my free speech, if that makes sense. It's the same thing they're doing with contraception. They're saying, oh yeah, women, you can use contraception all you want, but if you want to use it, you're going to have to do all these ridiculous, silly, obscene concessions and just violations of your privacy and of your financial records and whatnot. So that's what I got to say about this. I really apologize that there's not much else I can cover, but all this to say, I guess I'm really disappointed. I'm pissed off that this whole kind of culmination of events led to an end that really, I guess, realistically, I knew would come, but idealistically, I wished wouldn't. But that's all I got to say. It's an unfortunate thing, but, what are you going to do? Can't really afford to fight back. Ain't no millionaire. Don't got all that YouTube money, but, yeah. That's all I gotta say. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I love you. Alright, so the other day, I was driving to my buddy's house, gonna have a good bonfire, gonna have a good time, and I'm just driving, just minding my own business. I'm actually listening to the Game of Thrones audiobook. It was Storm of Swords. I just finished that one up. I'm on to Feast for Crows now. Very good books. It's gotten to the point that I don't even, listen to music in the car anymore. I just listen to the audiobooks. They're fantastic. So I was doing that, driving. I get close to his house, and he has a pretty long, meandering neighborhood, and so I'm driving through. And I was going probably about 30 miles an hour, so about, 5 miles over the speed limit or whatnot. And I'm driving, and then out of nowhere, I'm going around a corner, and a little tiny, 3-year-old kid, I'm terrible at guessing kids' ages, but this kid was so young, he legitimately was tripping, and not tripping because he was just a little kid too rambunctious and running around, but he was tripping because he was a child that really couldn't walk yet, like a child that could not walk at all, hardly. Just his first few steps, I wouldn't be surprised. And so he is walking out, and he falls into the road, and I am coming around a corner, and so I see this kid fall down, and thank goodness I was paying attention. I slam on my brakes, and of course I wasn't going very fast, so it wasn't like a big kind of, man, that was a bad sound, like a big long screech, like to really make apparent the fact that I was slowing down so quickly. But I slowed down really fast, and I looked to the right, and I was just flabbergasted that this kid was right out in the middle of the street. And I don't want to make it sound like I was right about to hit him, like the little baby looked up and was smiling at my grill, because that's not how it went. But he did look up, and I was probably 15 feet from him, so pretty close, closer than you would like a car to be. And the reason I couldn't see him is because there was a bush behind me to the right, and it was a big swooping right turn, and so it kind of obscured that patch of the road. And then as soon as I came around, this person's whole house came into view on my right, and this kid was still laying there, and I kind of was just flabbergasted this happened. And further by this kid's house are both of his parents. Now, the dad had the hose out, and he was hosing down one of the cars, completely looking the other direction, and the mom was sitting on the stoop out front, or maybe not a stoop, a little porch area, and chatting away on her cell phone, not paying attention either. And so these kids, I should call them kids, because it was that phenomenally irresponsible. These parents, these adults, had completely neglected their kid, and upon realizing after I slowed down so fast and stopped moving, the mom looked up and kind of gave big saucer eyes and was like, oh my goodness, running out there. She runs out. The husband's attention is called to the scenario. Husband walks over slowly, puts the hose away. Big fat fuck, worthless. He has a wife beater on, but not like a yellow stained wife beater, just something you'd use when you're washing a car and you're too fat to go shirtless. And this overweight lady, she comes out, grabs the kid, picks him up, and just starts carrying him back to the house. But before long, the husband catches up, and he kind of puts his hand on the wife's shoulder and points at me, like directly at me. And she turns around, and she has just the most indignant look on her eyes, like just freaking out, like, oh yeah, just like yelling and screaming. Not yelling and screaming yet. We'll get there though. She's making an indignant look, looks back, sees me there, and I gave one of those shrugs because my windows were down. I wasn't gonna get out of the car and talk to these morons. I just gave one of those shrugs and those kind of shake of the heads, like, what the hell are you thinking? Like, are you serious? Like, is this happening right now? Are you that incredibly inept as a parent to not take care of your kid? And then the mom turns around, gives me one more, just stares daggers at me, and then starts walking the kid back. And then the dad starts to walk towards me. And the dad gets up to the passenger side of my car, and my car has really, really tinted windows, so he couldn't see in except for a little bit through the front. And so he comes over, and then he raps on my window. And it wasn't a courteous, like, knock, knock, knock. It was like a rap, 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 like with his knuckles right on the thing. And immediately, my pissed off meter just goes through the roof, just to think that this guy would have the gall to do what he just did. And so I roll down the window, and I looked at him, and I said, "What the hell is your problem? Someone could have killed your kid. If I hadn't been paying attention, I could have easily ran over your child. He was in the middle of the road. That is a two-year-old kid. I don't know how the hell old your kid is, but that was a young child, and you were over there with your ass turned to him, and your wife was just talking on the phone over there. You could have just had your child killed." And the guy just went off and was like, "Don't you tell me how to parent. Don't you tell me how to parent. He wasn't even close to the road. He wasn't even close to the road. He was still in our yard. He was still in our yard. Why'd you stop so fast? Huh? Why'd you stop so fast?" And I was like, "Well, what?" And I was so just, my mind was blown. Like, what the hell was this guy even arguing about? Was he thinking that I was just like slammed on my brakes for no reason, just to look over at he and his family and just like watch a child play in the yard? Like, Jesus Christ, like what the hell is wrong with you? Like, I can understand like that he was mad because he realized his own phenomenal ineptitude and that he messed up big time. But at the same time, like, if that happens, he should have just said, "You know what, you're right. I should be watching my kid better. Thank you for watching the road and being a responsible adult and stopping." And keep in mind, this whole time, like, I'm not like bumping music like a hardcore thug who was like out to get children or some shit, which even if I were, I wouldn't be out to get a fucking 2-year-old playing in a yard. This whole time, I'm listening to goddamn Game of Thrones. So right now, he came up to talk to me, and there's like a chapter reading from a book, and it's just kind of ridiculous, not making much sense. And so he keeps yelling. He's angry at me, saying that I get to watch myself on the road, to which I responded, like, "What the hell are you talking about? I am watching the road. That's the reason your son or your daughter, so young I couldn't even tell the sex, isn't dead right now." And he just kept going off and was angry. And then he said, "Oh, you stay still. I'm going to get your license plate. I'm calling the police. I'm calling the police." And I was like, I didn't even say anything to that, because as soon as he stepped away, I was like, "Okay, you can get my license." I just sped off because it was a really long straightaway right there, and that time I did get going fast enough because I've got Chrysler 300. It's like a 5.6, 5.7 liter V8. It's got some pickup, and so I burned out right in this dude's face. That was the most badass thing I've probably ever done in my entire life. I felt really proud about it. But yeah, so that's the story of the incredibly inept father and wife duo who almost put me in a situation where I could have killed a child because they were allowing him to literally, like when I say in the middle of the road, I'm not talking like sitting on the curb. I'm talking 2 feet to the right of the middle line in the road. That's how middle I'm talking about, right in the middle of the goddamn right lane. And I could have killed this kid. So, that was pretty shitty. But, it all worked out in the end. I have a good story for it now. And I really hope that next time I'm driving through there that maybe the mom or the dad is playing out there. And I might just smash into them with my car. Teach them a little bit of a lesson about, being safe in the road. I'll probably accelerate into them, to be completely honest, because they are unfit parents. Anyway, that's like, I'm not sure if Qdoba is a restaurant anywhere but the United States, and even then, I'm not sure it's in every state. But it's essentially a Chipotle, and even if you don't have those in your country, basically you all know what Subway is. It's where you go and you kind of make your sandwich as you go. When you look through the glass, and the people on the other side are kind of looking down with dismay at the sandwich, like, "Oh my God, what has my life become?" And then they make it for you, and then it gets to the end, and then you get it. It's essentially that, except instead of subs, you make a burrito or a quesadilla or something along those lines, some Mexican food. And so I'm there, I go in, and I am a huge fan of this place. I look forward to it every time that I go. This particular brand was Qdoba, this restaurant name rather. And so I went in, line was pretty long. I'm like, all right, doesn't matter. It may take a little while, but I'm gonna forge ahead. I'm gonna make sure it works out. So immediately I get in line. Unfortunately for me, I vastly overestimated the speed with which these people would do their job and make the fucking burritos because they were going so slow you would think that there was like a Nazi standing behind them with a gun pressed up against their temple, like, as soon as you finish this burrito, we will kill you. And so they're like working as slow as possible. And I apologize to all the Germans who are watching for that accent. But anyway, so I'm in line. It's taken forever. I look forward, and a woman and a man are working diligently, doing their jobs without any complaint. And then another man and woman are behind them, just kind of looking lazily at the chicken while it's cooking. It's like, I know, the cook guy, he has to be back there. He's making all the chicken. He's making the steak and whatnot. But you two, you're just watching it cook. You're just like waiting on him to provide an order. No, fuck that. Get off your asses, come up to the front, and start serving people burritos. That's what you're paid for, please. I would appreciate that very much. Just a little bit of reciprocity here on the customer, server relationship that we're having going right now. I'm paying money. A little bit of service would be awesome. So I finally get up there, tell him to make my burrito, steak and chicken burrito, on a flour tortilla, no beans, because if you know anything about these places, they always are very eager to ask you about beans. You'll notice that the first thing they do is, what kind of beans do you want? No. Screw that. If you're a smart human being, you don't get beans, because guess what? Inside the confines of that flour tortilla, there is very little real estate that I'm willing to not be taken up by queso or cheese or salsa or meat. And anything that is not one of those things that is taking up space in there had better be freaking delicious. And beans do not make the cutoff for me. They simply don't. And so every time they ask for beans, I almost want to be like, hell no, man. I want more meat in there, because what they're saying is, hey, how much of this space filler do you want in your burrito that you're going to pay $9 for? So I always say, no beans, screw that. Get on over there. Lady asks me for what kind of steak or what kind of chicken. I'm like, give me both. She asks, do you want half and half, or do you want full portion? And I'm like, I want full portion, because I know at the time, this lady I'm talking to, not the same lady that's going to check me out. So guess what, mofos? I'm going to get the double meat, and then in a few seconds, I'm going to be able to pay for the single meat, because she doesn't know. She's not going to take the time to mark it with a mark or anything. I'm just going to get a little bit of free meat for my trouble. I think that's totally fair. And if there is one time that I have to admit where I am a total sexist, it's when I'm in line at Qdoba, because I want to make sure that there have been times, I'm not going to fabricate this part of the story for you guys. There have been times, actual times, not this juncture, but other times, where I let someone go ahead of me in line at Qdoba because I saw that I would be served by a man making my burrito instead of a woman, because you always get way more meat from the man. Like when there's a woman up there and she's scooping it, all my experiences led me to believe that when you say, I want double meat, they just take it up and then they have a big heaping spoonful of delicious, savory looking chunks of meat, like almost like a dog food commercial. And then instead of just dumping it on there, they like give it a little wrist shake. They leave it a little wrist shake and all little bits fall off. I'm like, what the hell? What are you doing, bitch? I just paid for that meat and you're shaking it off. You're teasing me, tantalizing me with the potential for that big heaping serving of meat to be in my stomach shortly, and yet you shake it back off into the bin, even though I've already told you that I want double meat. And so I usually will wait and try and get a man, because when a man's up there, he's like, all right, this guy's asking for double meat. He's a hungry bastard. Really just wanted to get a big, brick of food from this burrito shack. And so he'll just take a few big scoops, and sometimes he'll even give you that eyebrow movement look where he's like, gives you the little bit of a movement, nothing else with his face, just kind of like, yeah, I know what we're doing right now. You're going to go home and eat this and have a terrible shit later. And I kind of give him the look of, don't judge me, just make the damn burrito. And then he gives me a little bit, like maybe even that big spoonful, and then like 3 or 4 more cubes of beef afterward. Thank you, sir. But this time, no, had a woman who was making it, but she did much better than most women. She gave me a good amount of meat. And to the next station, that's where they give you your salsa and whatnot. And the lady gave me the salsa that I asked for without a problem. And then she moved it over again and was like, you want cheese and sour cream? And I've told this before, but on a scale of like 0 to the Holocaust, I hate sour cream as much as I hate Hayden Christensen. I hope that really articulated clearly to you guys. I hate it that much. I hate it like 3 ticks past the Holocaust. Sour cream for me is terrible. It cools down the burrito. It takes up valuable real estate that could be taken up by queso or something more delicious. It's just not good. It's just not a good flavor. And the way they put it in there, you don't get a nice even spreading of sour cream. Not to say that any amount of it could ever be nice, in my opinion. You just get one fat mouthful of just puffy nastiness that you're like, oh my god, did the fucking Michelin man just jack off in my mouth? This is disgusting. And so I just said, no, please, I would like cheese, no sour cream. And I can remember it because you always kind of speak quietly because there are a lot of people around, but I said it more loudly than I should have. I said, cheese and no sour cream. I was very, very clear because I hate it so much that it's making me angry right now to think about it. And what does this lady do? She looks down as if she didn't even listen to me, and she skips the cheese, reaches in, takes out a fat dollop of sour cream, and slaps it on my burrito. And so now I look at her and I'm like, no, I said no sour cream. I said no sour cream. And then she looked up at me like I was giving her a chore. Like I was like, oh, this guy's going to make a scene now. And of course, I didn't want to make a scene. There were people behind me. You know, I am going to be paying a lot of money for a burrito, and so I kind of deserve to, I don't know, eat what I paid for, but I didn't want to make a big scene. And she was like, do you just want me to scrape it off? And I was like, yeah, just scrape it off. So she takes one of the salsa containers and starts half-ass scraping it off, and just, it was brutal, and you can't scrape it all off. It's not like she threw it on top of like a piece of bread where you can kind of wipe it off or something. She threw it on top of rice and meat and salsa, and it was just, there's no way. You cannot get it out of there. It's like if a dog shits on your carpet and then you take like a rolling pin and then just push it in there. No matter how much you clean, there's still going to be shit in that carpet. You cannot get it out of there. So that was basically the scenario here, because that is the same level of disgust with which I look at sour cream. That and shit are pretty equally palatable to me. And so she does that, and she starts half-ass scraping it out, and I'm looking at, like, to myself, like, trying introspectively to be like, Taylor, settle down, man. Settle down. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. It's just a little sour cream. Never killed anyone. And of course, in my head, I'm like, what the hell, lady? What the hell? I couldn't have said it any louder. I said it so loud that the guy to my right, who's getting a burrito behind me, looked at me strangely. He's like, Jesus, what he wanted to say to me, are you allergic to sour cream or some shit? Because that's the only way he could possibly imagine someone getting that angry about the prospect of sour cream on their burrito. And so essentially, she scrapes the rest of it off. There's still some on there, and really, I'm not a superstitious guy at all, and so I've seen a lot of messed up stuff on the internet, but the only time that I consistently turn away from an action happening is when someone is rolling my burrito at a burrito store, because I am always constantly imagining, like, no, please don't rip it, please don't ruin it, please don't ruin my burrito, and I just didn't even want to see, because when she was turning it around to start rolling it, I was going to get to see how much sour cream was left on there, and I'm like, no, Taylor, you don't want to see it, it's going to be too much, man. It's going to be too much. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. And so I just turned away, let her roll it, and then took it to go, and the burrito, actually pretty good. I got one mouthful, and I got a little bit of sour cream in there, and it made me want to go hang myself in the bathroom briefly, but I got over that pretty quickly as soon as I got a little bit more steak in my mouth. But unfortunately, the person who rolled it, the same person who put the wrong goddamn sour cream on there, also neglected to mix it up, so I had like half rice, half steak and chicken, and the assorted rest. And so that's my Qdoba story. Don't really know why it was worth telling, but it was pretty aggravating, and I'm sure you trust me. So on that note, fuck sour cream, and I love you. So, having recently turned 21, my license expired, and so I was forced to go to the DMV, or the Department of Motor Vehicles, and get my license renewed and get everything taken care of to make sure that I have the proper documentation when I undoubtedly get pulled over again for some sort of traffic offense. I don't even know. So I went there, decided to take the initiative on my part and get up pretty early and go. And by pretty early, I mean like 10 a.m. And so I figured my logic was, hey, it seems like everyone who goes to the DMV really hates it, and for obvious reasons. So I'm going to get this out of the way early in the day and just try and get there before a line builds up so I can just nip this in the bud and go on with my day and not have this looming over my head. So I get there pretty early in the morning, and as soon as I walk in, much to my chagrin, I realize, oh shit, it seems like everyone else had this idea too, and I noticed there were about 15 people in line for different parts of the DMV, but there were only about 5 people in line for the license aspect. I don't know how most DMVs are organized, but this one in particular had 2 different counters, one for, I guess, more important licensing things, and then one just for renewals. And so I thought, hey, that's kind of good news. There's only 3 or 4 people ahead of me, maybe 5, I don't know. And so I went and pulled a number, and I realized, oh, nice, I'm only 4 numbers away. That's awesome. So I sit down, and I expect things to kind of go pretty quickly from there, and I'm kind of having a little bit of, fleeting optimism as I realize that the workers there have absolutely no desire to do their jobs. And really, you have to understand that the DMV is just the worst place in the history of forever. Like, if religion does exist and I go to hell, it's going to send me to the DMV, because that's where it's going to be. I'm just going to have to sit in a DMV for all of eternity watching a bunch of idiots bumble around behind the counter, taking their sweet time and not doing any work at all, because that's what hell is to me. I mean, honestly, if there were a man in a booth outside of the DMV and he said, hey, I can take care of your license renewal right now, immediately, and you don't even have to pay me, the only thing you have to let me do is light your hair on fire, I would have said, yes, sir, light me up, get me on fire. Afterwards, you can beat me around a little bit with a crowbar, because that's how much I loathe the DMV and the people who work there. So I walk in, as I said, I sit down, I'm waiting, and my feeling of optimism that this was going to start to go quickly began to just float away as soon as I realized that the woman in front of me, the one who was getting her license renewed, she came back after getting her license and walked out the door, and instead of the person who was taking charge of that, instead of her asking for the next number, she immediately just stood up and turned around and started talking to her 3 coworkers who were also not doing anything. So at this point in time, a few more people have walked in behind me. I guess I kind of beat a little bit of a rush. I don't know. So 3 or 4 more people have walked in, and at this point, nobody is being helped. Absolutely no one. There are 2 separate stations where licenses can be made and produced, and they can take the picture. And there were 3 other computers for people of other needs. I guess I don't even know, people who just needed to do something else with their license. I don't know. I'm not informed on all the subtleties and wonderful aspects of working at a DMV. And so at this juncture, there are 4 women, the 4 women attendants who are working back there, just standing, talking amongst themselves as the line continued to pile up. And I thought, all right, I don't want to get mad or angry. Yeah, this is really rude. Yeah, this is like a middle finger to everyone else who's in here right now by saying like, hey, I realize you're here and you don't want to be here, but I'm going to take this break for myself. And so I kind of got irritated, but I was like, you know what, whatever, let's just let it pass. And no joke, for about 5 minutes, this continues. And I know 5 minutes sounds like a really small window of time, but 5 minutes at a DMV is about an hour and a half somewhere else. Like, honestly, sitting in a DMV for 5 minutes feels like sitting in an hour and a half long feature film in a movie theater. That's how distorted the time-space continuum is in there. It must be some sort of, I don't know, something with physics. I don't even know. I'm not adept enough to make a conclusion about that, but I am sure that there is something weird going on in that DMV. Like, it's the only place in the world where as I'm sitting down, I'll consciously think, like, you know what would be really fun right now? If I would stub my toe really hard. That'd be great. I can't wait till the next time I stub my toe. Or, you know what would be great? I can't wait until the next time that, I become really ill with the flu and have to spend a whole day vomiting, or I get really constipated and just feel shitty the whole day, or something like that. Like, that's the only time where you have those thoughts, where you just think, yeah, you know what would be fun right now? Going to the dentist. Like, that's it. Nowhere else in the world do you have thoughts like that. So I continued to sit there and wait for about 5 minutes as these women continued to chat it up amongst themselves. And meanwhile, I'm looking around at the other people around me in line, and we're not talking, obviously, because it's the DMV and because nobody wants to talk at the DMV any more than they have to. But we kind of made eye contact with each other, me and a few other guys and girls waiting in line, and we pretty much gave that universal signal of like slightly raised eyebrows and like that kind of pursed lips, like, this is kind of ridiculous, can't believe this is happening. But nobody was taking the initiative to get things going again. So I decided I was going to stand up and just politely go ask the woman who was working the license station if she could, help out the next person in line, because I had a place to go. I have people to see, And I made especially clear to say it in the most kind and courteous way imaginable, because I often say things and people perceive them as much ruder than they actually are. Maybe that's just the way I speak, or I come off as rather curt. But I really, really went up there with the intention of being very polite and just kind of drawing your attention to the fact that, hey, I understand that your job sucks, asshole, but could you please help us, because we all have things to do. And so I walked up there and I asked her very, very courteously, hey, we've been waiting for a while and nobody's been helped. Would you mind helping people in line again so we can, get out of here? And instead of turning around, and I expected her to kind of have a little pang of guilt, like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I should be doing this, and then just walk back and continue to work. She turned around and she looked at me and she said, looked at me straight in the eyes and said in a really just kind of curt voice, "Calm down, sir. I'll get to it when I get to it." I want to repeat that. Calm down, sir. I'll get to it when I get to it. Now, you have to know that this felt like a punch in the face to me, because one of my biggest pet peeves is being told to calm down when I've done nothing at all that is anything but calm. I went up there with every intention of being courteous, and I really just wanted to, expedite the process for myself and everyone else in there. And I could tell that the people in line were kind of like giving their silent nods and cheers of approval in their head. Like in their eyes, they were just like, they had the same complacent look of boredom as ever before. But in their minds, I could tell they were like, yeah, you go, guy, you tell them. And so I told her that, and she told me to calm down. And the second part almost got to me worse, even though I don't have like a specific pet peeve against that. She said, I'll get to it when I get to it. Like that, how arrogant, how phenomenally rude do you have to be for it to be your job to do something, and you and the other 3 people who should be working these stations and helping people and getting through this line as fast as possible are just sitting around, just drinking coffee, talking amongst each other for no reason, for no purpose whatsoever. And so the line is continuing to pile up as more and more people come in, and eventually, about a minute or so after I went up there and talked to her, she begrudgingly turned around and sat down and called the next person up, and I was like, all right, finally, these women are going to get back to work, these attendants, and they're going to get this under control and get this line moving. And unfortunately for me, apparently the only person who felt the need to do her job was the one who I talked to, because the other 3 women who had been standing there talking since I had come in had yet to do anything. They had not even made their way to a computer yet. They weren't standing by any of the workstations. They weren't calling numbers. They weren't, carrying anything around or like filing papers. Like at the very least, they could have pretended to be busy, just like picking shit up back there, like, oh yeah, this certainly is work that I'm doing. But no, they didn't even have the courtesy to feign an attempt at their job. And so I continued to sit there and wait as 4 fully capable human beings worked as slowly as possible, and eventually I get called up, and the woman who called me up was obviously the same one who I had talked to, the only one who was actually doing work, slowly as it was, and everyone else who had gone up was very quickly taken care of, relatively to how long it took me to get taken care of. So I went up there, I gave her my license, and she started asking me all these questions, and I've had my license renewed before. I know how long it's supposed to take. You're just supposed to give them your license. They ask you like your address and your height and your date of birth and all that stuff, and make sure all the details are right, and you sign a thing, and that's it. But she spent like probably 5 or 10 minutes with my license in her hand, just dilly-dallying on her computer. I don't know what she was pretending to do, but I know that she wasn't actually entering information, because I noticed that her hands never even made the way over to the numeric keyboard. She was just kind of typing in, I don't even know. For all I know, she could have been on Google or Reddit or something. And then she told me to go over to the license picture place and to stand by the blue tarp so they can get my picture. And she didn't even give me 2 seconds to look up at the camera. She took the picture the second that I stood there. And so now in my picture, I look like a serial rapist, which, I can't really complain because everybody looks terrible in their license picture. So that really just got to me. There's not really a moral to this story. There's no really reason that it's relevant in any way, shape, or form. But it was just strange to me, because you always hear these stories about the horrors of the DMV, and I guess I had never fully experienced it. I figured that the horrors was just how abominably slow these people work. But that illusion was shattered for me this weekend, or rather a few days ago. I don't think it was the weekend, where these women just could not get their heads on straight and do any work. And then when I finally did get up there, they seemed to intentionally make my process take like 3 or 4 times longer than everyone else's. So